Call the meeting to order. Pastor?
So I want to introduce myself. My name is Ken Adams, and I am privileged to be the pastor of Crossroads Church in Newnan. And as of yesterday, I've been there for 37 years. And so this is my first Newnan City Council to be at, and first time I've had the honor of coming and praying for y'all. So I'll do that. Let's all bow together and commit our meeting to the Lord. Father, we love you. Thank you for a beautiful day that you've given us. And Lord, we thank you for this place that we're able to live. We thank you for just an incredible community to be a part of. And thank you for all who serve so well here in this community. Lord, for those that are here in this room and for those who just serve to protect us and to take care of us, Lord, in all different professions, those who teach in our schools. Lord, just thank you for this community. And Lord, we know how important it is that we are led in the right way and led in the right direction. And so I do pray for wisdom and guidance and for provision and protection for those who sit in these seats here in this room and who are giving direction and guidance to the city. And I pray, Father, that you would be blessing this meeting tonight and have your hand upon it. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, with that, we move into the adoption of the minutes. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? If not, I will take a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Moving on to boards and commissions, we have an appointment to the Christmas Commission.
Next agenda, please.
Next agenda. Convention Center Authority.
I'd like to reappoint Teresa Lovett to the Convention Center.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, carries unanimously.
No discussion. We're not having discussion.
Appointments?
Is there
Okay,
an
no.
appointment? We're doing appointments, yeah.
I'm
Thank
just making sure.
you. We move into the Convention Center Authority. Mr. Berta?
I'd like to renominate Parks Avery.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. For the Cultural Arts Commission, Mr. Kriko?
Ms. Nora Ann is stepping down, and so I want to make sure that we send her a letter in appreciation of her time and volunteering with the city, and I'd like to just put that on the next agenda, please.
Very good. One for the Development Authority.
Yes, I have my appointment. First, I want to have a letter sent to Pastor Tamarcus Cook for his service, and I'd also like to appoint Pierre Watley.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, carries unanimously. Keep Newnan Beautiful.
I'd like to reappoint Allison Ziegler for another term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Another Keep Newnan Beautiful.
I also would like to thank Ms. Graham for her service on Keeping It Beautiful, and would like to appoint Ms. Constance Jordan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Tree and Parks Commission.
Next meeting, please.
Next meeting, okay. Now we move into reports on operations by the city manager.
Mayor, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Reports and communications from the mayor. It is election day. You've got 30 more minutes to get in line if you're not there already. And also I want to thank staff and the council we had our first work session on the comprehensive plan that we're updating right now. Last night over at the Fire Training Center, it was a really good conversation, really productive. We have a lot of great ideas floating around that room. So thanks everybody for being, a good part of that conversation, and looking forward to the rest of the process with y'all. With that, we move into new business. Item H, consideration of the First Amendment of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Newnan and Explore Newnan Coweta Incorporated regarding health insurance and benefits.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just real quickly, the current agreement that we have with Explore Newnan Coweta is set to expire in September of this year. We've received a letter from their chairman asking us to continue the relationship. It's an agreement whereby the city offers health insurance and some other benefits that we have to the employees of the organization. They pay the full COBRA rate, and the other benefits are also paid for at full rate. The proposed extension is 1 year with automatic renewals for the next 5 successive years. Staff would recommend approval. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Now we move into discussion, and I just had one quick question. I just want to confirm that this actually ends up with no net cost for the city. Is that correct?
That's correct. They pay the full COBRA rate.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Great. All right. That was my only question. Any further discussion?
So they do pay the full rate. I
Yes.
get that. If they have an excessive claim, how is that covered?
It would be covered like any other employee would be covered.
Okay, great. Thank you.
They're offered the same package that a city employee is offered.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any further discussion? If not, I will accept a motion on consideration of the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement as presented in item H.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. We move into item I, consideration of a request from the Coweta County Board of Commissioners to designate 2 parking spots on the south side of the court square to be used exclusively for Coweta County probate court personnel. Staff.
Mayor, council, we don't have a report here. I don't know if anybody's in the audience who wants to speak to this, but historically, they've placed a cone out front, and it appears from their letter that they've hired an associate judge. He or she began work last year, and they're looking for your permission to utilize 2 spaces instead of 1.
Is that something that we can kind of time-bound or provide some signage for? I'm not sure.
They said in the letter that they're going to provide signage.
Oh, and is
county
that,
will.
is that time-bounded?
Yes.
Right,
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
8 to 5.
perfect, all right.
I think that's where the cone was nice, because they just moved the cone then.
Yeah,
It's very obvious what it
It's
is.
typical behaviors. They show up in the morning. One of the law enforcement officers, she or he will place it in an open spot. I guess now they'll, if permitted, they'll place 2 instead of 1.
Yeah,
So
a
how long
total
have
of
we,
2.
I'm sorry,
Correct?
go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a grand total of 2 cones, not 2 more
That's
cones.
how I read it. Yes, sir.
yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Well, I just want to add a question. How long have we been doing this, giving them that spot? And I'm piggybacking on our conversation last night of all the concern about parking spaces downtown to sacrifice 2. I just want to see if that is,
In
I know
all
it's only 2, but at
yeah,
the same
in all
time, it
honesty,
does
sir, I think
cannibalize.
this is the first time we have a formal ask for it. So this will be the first action the council's taken to formally allow for this.
Yeah. And what if they, if it's not approved, what do they do?
Find
Find
a place
another
to
spot
park
to
like
park?
everybody else, I guess.
Okay.
So would it be maybe appropriate to make it like a 1 year to see if we can find an alternative instead of just making it a blanket?
I don't know. It's the pleasure of this board, whatever you see fit.
Do we know how long they've been putting the cone out?
Oh, it's been a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And in all candor, it really doesn't interrupt the day-to-day business. I mean, most of the downtown business community, I think, has gotten used to it. They like having the probate judge there. They like having those facilities there. I don't see it interrupting the day-to-day business to have 2 spaces.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I would find a good practice to support our judges for their safety and just to make sure that there is a parking space for them, when they need to get to court and handle the business. So I think it's good practice to continue to support our judges.
I also kind of prefer having something formal rather than cones being stuck out. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the request from the Coweta County Board of Commissioners on the designation and in item I.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. All right, excuse me. We move into item J, consideration of adjustment to fees for Greenville Street park rentals following facility improvements. Floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just here to present an opportunity to, following the enhancements that you see just across the street at Greenville Street Park with a covered stage, a larger green space. As part of the SPLOST funding, $1.28 million was invested in that park. So we feel that the value of that park has improved. I feel like the fees that we've suggested are similar to venues of similar size, of similar kind of community size as well. But we're not going crazy on the fees. We're trying to make it fit in with the rental fees of the other city facilities. So comparable, but kind of a happy medium is what I'd like to present it as. So happy to answer any questions on that.
All right, moving to discussion.
I do have a question.
Quadrupling.
On the recommended fee, the 4 hours or more, $300, is there a cap on the time? I mean, 4 hours or more, kind of, or more is a very open-ended, you know, if you have
Right.
decide to have somebody do a camp-in or something.
Sure. So all of our facilities are allowed to be rented between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. That's across the board. So it would follow that same guideline. That 4 hours that you're seeing, and that's comparable to like Pickett Field, where we have a 4 hours or more rental rate. That kind of includes your tournaments that may come in. So bigger events is what we're trying to prepare for with that fee.
So time to like set up and then tear down afterwards.
Exactly. All the rental times would need to include their setup and tear down. Also in that fee schedule, there's just a highlight that during the application process, as they fill out their application for the rental, there are questions that will be asked that may trigger a response from our staff to seek out more information from that renter, just to make sure that they're taking care of the facility as appropriate for their event.
Further discussion?
Well, I did have a question, kind of with talking about the fees, the kind of making sure that they take care of the facility as they should. And I know some of the other security deposits, just look at the security deposit, 100, 200, you know, some other fees. Do you think is $100 appropriate for, you know, if somebody were to come in and, you know, for our folks didn't have to come in and clean up afterwards?
Right. I think so. I mean, it's similar to our other parks where we do have staff that are monitoring this on a normal basis. You know, I think Wadsworth Auditorium is really the only one that really increases that security deposit because of what that facility is. You know, we want to certainly take care of that historic landmark, but the other facilities, I mean, across the board, it's pretty much $100 security deposit. If you know, these questions that we're asking of that renter, I think we'll have the ability to protect that facility, just having those conversations in advance. So that's the job of our staff, is to make sure that we're doing our due diligence with each one of these renters to make sure that they're taking care of the facility. And obviously, if they, you know, may do some damage to the facility that costs money, I mean, that would be a conversation where we may, you know, talk to them about future rentals and their ability to rent in the future.
All right, great, thank you.
Sure.
I have one other question, not about the fees. I misread. I now see them, and they are fairly reasonable. When can we expect construction to be done so that people can utilize this building, this facility?
That's a great question. So I think, and Haskell, chime in if you'd like, but I believe that our expectation is that it will be ready within the coming weeks to be available to the public for rental.
That's a great question. We're smiling because we're trying to line up a big splashy event
Right.
in all candor. And if you recall, this construction is running concurrently with Bicentennial Park, so the same contract. So opening one before the other could affect warranty and things, but we think before the summer's over, we'd like to open it, and then open it with kind of a splashy event that's free to the public and everybody can come in. If you get a chance when it stops raining, go check it out. It's quite impressive. A number of us are very excited to host an event there.
I think very soon we'll see a fun activity for the community that will be planned out there. So we're looking forward to doing something really fun.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Then I'll accept a motion to approve the adjustment to fees as presented in item J.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, carries unanimously. Moving into item K, a presentation from Nichols Colley of the audited 2025 financial statements.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to report that our 25 audit is complete, and Mr. Chapman is here with us tonight to kind of give you an update of that report. Just want to thank him and his staff for all that they've done, and thank our finance staff. We have a tremendous staff. Rhonda Hilton and her team do a tremendous job in preparing for this and working with Greg's staff. So just a big shout out and thanks to them. But with that, Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Greg Chapman. I'm a partner with Nichols Colley and Associates. We're a public accounting firm. I'm the lead partner of our governmental practice. That's most of what I do. I still have a few small irons in the fire, but mostly I have transitioned to completely governmental and not-for-profits. We audit small cities. I looked at the one, I was doing a small report for, I think they had 66 citizens, and then we do large counties in the Atlanta region. So we do governments of all sizes throughout the state of Georgia. But we did complete the audit for the city's 2025 audit, and I'm here to present the results of that audit. Maybe. There we go. So in performing our audit, we're basically, our job is to provide basically two letters in your report. And the first one of those is the report on the basic financial statements. And our opinion on those financial statements is what we call an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. So that's what you're looking for, and that's the highest level of assurance that we can provide as your auditor on your financial statements. And what that means is that your financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean that we look at every transaction, or we'd be here all year. Basically, as Ron posts a transaction, we'd be looking at it. So we have to do sampling and testing and confirmations to test the balances in your financials to render our opinion. So we did render that clean opinion. Additionally, we issue a report on internal controls. We do not audit internal controls, but we do use internal controls as a mechanism to perform our audit. And should we, in the course of our audit, identify any significant deficiencies or internal or material weaknesses, we do have to report those to the City Council. And I am happy to report that we have no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report. This year, the city did have to have a third report, which is a single audit. Any governmental entity or not-for-profit that spends more than $1 million, that was just raised this year from $750,000 to $1 million. But if you spend over $1 million in federal grant money, you're required to have a single, what they call a single audit. So this year, the city did exceed that $1 million, and most of that was the spending of the majority of what was left of the ARPA grant fund. And so that was the major program tested with the ARPA grant fund, a little over $3 million in that was tested. And again, unmodified or clean opinion on the single audit. For 2024, the city opted to go what I would say above and beyond the minimum requirements. The state requires that the city prepare a financial statement of accordance with GAAP, submit those to the Department of Audits, and the city has done that in the past. But the city elected in 2024 to do what the GFOA calls an annual comprehensive financial report, which provides some additional layers of information, transmittal information in the front and some statistical information in the back, and produces a more comprehensive report, which provides more transparency and a trend information above what's required. And actually, the city submitted that to the GFOA, and someone goes through that report, grades it, provides comments, and issues us, if you pass, you get a certificate of achievement in financial reporting, and the city did receive that certificate. So this was the first year the city submitted and received that recognition. And just some context, only 71 cities in the state of Georgia received that for this year, for 2024, as of the date that I prepared this PowerPoint. So definitely kudos to the city for going above and beyond and preparing that additional information, because it wasn't something I did. It was something Rhonda had to pull together all that information and gather that statistical data to prepare that information. In addition to our audit, we do have to report to the city council some additional information. We did provide that to you in a separate letter. Nothing in that letter is alarming or unusual. I provide that letter to the city of Newnan, also to any other governmental or even to a bank we audit. So the letter is the same across any entity that we audit, but it provides just pointing you out to the significant accounting policies of the city, significant estimates. If there were any disagreements with management, I would have to disclose that in that letter. There were none, of course. If there were any difficulties in that letter, we would have to disclose it there. There were no difficulties. I will report to you here. If the city elected to not make any audit adjustments that we proposed that were significant enough in nature for me to report, but not significant enough for me to change my opinion, I would have to report that to you, but we didn't have any of those. I would have to report it to you in that letter. And then I have to report on my independence to the city, and that can mean a lot of things. One, my spouse cannot serve on the city council and me perform the audit, but two, it limits what kind of services we can provide. I can't come in and tell Rhonda how to account for everything and then come in and do the audit. So that there are certain services I cannot provide as your auditor. If so, I would have to step away as being the auditor, but we do report to you that we are independent to the city. So now briefly, we'll go through just some quick financial highlights. At this point, you're almost 6 months looking in the rearview mirror, so this is a little dated at this point, but just a quick snapshot of the 25 fiscal year. Looking at the revenues in the cities, the revenues and expenditures of the city's general fund. The general fund is the city's main operating fund. This is the day-to-day operations of the city is run through the general fund. Revenues on the left, property taxes are about 20% of the revenues for the general fund. Sales taxes are 31%, and the other taxes make up 32%. Other taxes would include your business taxes, franchise taxes, alcoholic beverage taxes, all will be in that bottom left quadrant. On the right side are your expenditures. Not unusual for any city government. Public safety usually makes up 40 to 50%. Very typical for a city this size. 49% is public safety, that's fire and police. 28% is your general government, that's finance, IT, HR, facilities, and the municipal court. Public works is 11%, that's your streets and your cemetery and the garage. And then finally, community development is 12%. That's your parks and your recreational type activities. Looking at fund balance, revenues and expenditures, over the last 5 years, the right line, the bright blue line is your expenditures, the darker blue line would be your revenues. Last year, the far right two columns would be 2025 revenues ended the year with $39.5 million. That was up about $1.5 million over the prior year. Your expenditures are actually down $1.9 million, ended at $38.3 million for 2025. But just showing that trend of revenues and expenses. Looking at your fund balance, ending the year fund balance for the general fund was just under $31 million. That's about 9 months of expenditures, which the GFOA recommends 2 to 3 months of expenditures in fund balance. And you may ask, why would we need healthy fund balance? Several reasons for it. City of Newnan and Coweta County has experienced this several times here in the last few years, is significant emergencies, weather-related events, tornadoes. FEMA does not reimburse you very quickly, so you do need to come out of pocket to pay for those expenses, and then it takes sometimes 2 years to get that back from FEMA, so having a fund balance allows you to cover those expenses. Cash flows prevents you from having to borrow money. There are many cities and counties that have to go issue TANs to borrow money to get through to property taxes are collected. So having a strong fund balance gets you through those times. So definitely having a healthy fund balance does get you through those economic downturns and weather events, as y'all have experienced in recent years. Just quickly, in that transmittal letter that I mentioned, the city management pointed out some of the key accomplishments. These are like capital nature accomplishments for last year. The city did a roundabout, initiated construction of a roundabout on Stillwell Drive in 2025, initiated design of a bicentennial park, link path section, upgrades to the Greenville Street Park, completed rehabilitation, of some culverts in the Fairhaven subdivision and the Savannah Pinson culverts. Completed 6 pickleball courts, did some street resurfacing using the LMIG grant funding, and completed 3 workforce targeted homes on Murray Street. So definitely putting SWAS money and other grant funds to work in the city to complete these infrastructure projects. Again, thank you to the city, to you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to serve the city, use the council, the citizens of the city, to complete this year's financial audit. We are always here to answer questions for Rhonda May and their team, and happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Do you have any questions from council?
No, thank you.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much. With that, we move into item L, the presentation of the East Street analysis of street network prepared by IMS Infrastructure Management Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item here is to offer you a presentation and overview of our pavement analysis that we've recently conducted and completed just the beginning of this month. This is our second iteration. The last one was about 5 years ago and became more or less static. So this is fresh data, and I'm probably going to try to drive this for you just to show you some of its capabilities. But the highlights are is they send out a truck that looks like one of those Google Earth trucks. They drive all of our streets, and they collect the data. They use 3D scanning and some density testing and some other things, and they capture all of the distress, all of the cracking, rutting. They determine the structural components of each one of our streets. This is each block of each street. You'll see just how broken down this is and how many segments there are. And then the program, the software package, is proprietary, and it will enable us to budget out to 5 years. We will give it the budget numbers. We will give it our unit prices, and it will suggest streets. And the idea is that from those suggested streets, we will prepare a list of streets for you all to consider. That would be my next agenda item, so the two are related. But I can just go through this program right now and show you a couple things if you want to see that. I don't know. It's pretty small, but the idea is that there's a lot there. So, I want to keep that up.
Can you make it smaller?
I'm available to talk individually with any of you all at any time if you want to sit down with me on this. But so this is the East Street program we are in. Let's see, starts off with definitions. I'm not going through all that. It'll go through and just give you an overview and analysis of our system here, how many miles are rated in which way down here. These are the rehab activities. These are the types of approaches that are available to us.
Michael.
Anywhere from
Michael, I'm over here in the front. Me. Can you go down to the bottom right-hand corner and zoom in? Bottom right-hand corner, right there.
Okay.
There you go. Yes, thank you.
A lot. Gotten really big. But these are some of the approaches we can do. You can see it's got edge milling, it's got thin overlay, it's got full depth reclamation, ceiling cracks, and then over here in the yellow are the unit prices for Newnan. These are historical numbers. We track them and we try to keep them current so that we get a good estimate on what we're facing. Let's see, parameters. Much on the parameter page that's of interest. Here is the inventory, and if you'll look, you'll see you'll see it starts at First Avenue. They're alphabetical, and they go through every one of them. You can see I'm scrolling, and I'm still only in the A's and B's. So this is all of this. And not only what you've got here, you've got the from and to, you've got what it's made out of, it's got the width, the length, gives you the square yards, all the analysis and calculating our cost estimating. Then you go into here and it's got the condition summaries, our PCIs, which is pavement condition index. But you can scroll out, you can see it goes on. It's really, really hard to deal with on a computer screen. So that is the inventory, and then here's this tab going backwards is our analysis. And this is where it goes in and does the calculating. We have the ability to put in our budget numbers. You'll see our budget number for this year is 4.190, and I'll show you that's called Forced Year One. That's all of the projects that we have out there that are not complete, and this would include 2024 LMIG, 2025 LMIG, the work that's going on at Newnan High School. We've got the LRA 2025 ready to go out, and then I'll bring you LRA 2026 tonight. So we put the budget, our normal budget is 2.5 million, and it will take the condition that it has determined here, and it will generate a rehab by year. And so 5 years, as I mentioned. You go up here, you'll see all of these streets, Army Road, Kruger Way, Lynn Street, all that is Forced Year One. As I mentioned, they're already programmed and we're already either underway or getting ready to be underway. Their new numbers are not incorporated back in here, so the overall network, once they're completed, then this gets updated. And then here's year two, where it's suggesting Ball Street, Fontaine, et cetera, Maine, all the way down here. This is off of a $2.5 million budget, and 3 and 4 and 5, and we're getting out a little bit far because we'll manipulate this, and those will probably change into the future as we get out there. Let's see here.
Does this take into account like proximity to each other because of the need for the contractor to have to stage your equipment and move it all over the city, and does it kind of?
That's a very good question, and no, it does not. And it's actually, some of it is segment by segment. So when I say it suggests, I've got to go in, and for economies of scale, mobilization costs, and just so we're not running all over town doing a block here and a block there, we try to consolidate them, get a reasonable amount. For example, Summer Grove Parkway is so long, we could do 2 segments. We've done that in the past. But typically, we'll try to do the entire street, and we'll look at other streets in the area, and if they're close and considered eligible, we may stick them in and pull something out and push it on down the road. So that's a very good question. That's a lot here. I've got to think that through. So
Yeah, I mean, this looks like an engineer's dream.
it's an engineer's nightmare, Way too much information.
I think
No
the
such
point
thing.
of this is to let you guys know, we had reported at the beginning of the year that this was a task we were undertaking. We wanted to show you this. The interesting part for me, Michael, when we sit down and go through this, is it's dynamic too. So it's not static. As roadways are improved over time, it does that. And there's a really neat one that shows you in a kind of GIS map too, so you can look at what this looks like in that form too. But it's a helpful tool. You guys have been generous.
It's the fun.
$2.5 million a year. Michael talked about the $4 million that's kind of been stacked over time. But this is a great tool. We appreciate you guys funding this for us, for staff, to kind of remove some of the art and put some of the science behind the decision making. We know now almost every inch of the roadway is condition and how we believe it should be treated. There's still a little bit of art.
Yeah.
Most of it is based in science.
So can you go? Yeah, could you like say somebody goes out there and digs a pothole, and you report it, you go in. Can you change some of the numbers so that it now will adjust?
Well, I won't adjust it for a pothole, for something like that, because it's that data truck that takes all that in. Let me just click on, for example, this street here is Lismore Way, and you see it's rated very poor. If I click on that, then you're gonna get the picture of it right here. And so that's actually where they drove through, and there's an arrow up here that I can hit it in motion, and it'll have motion. But the other part that's kind of good is I can zoom in on this, and you see right there, it is highlighting all of the problems with it. The red is the different crack, and we've got longitudinal and alligator crack. This is a pretty bad road. This indicates base failure, and I'm sure the PCI number was indicative of that.
Yeah, a few years ago, you all shared a map with us, and that's how we started getting all of
right.
our priorities and that kind of thing done. So it's been a very helpful tool over time for us to be able to evaluate which roads really do need the help, because it takes into consideration not just the road condition, but how much it's traveled, and a whole bunch of other things. And so we've been able to really right-size our program to take care of those streets that really need taking care of quickly, without a whole lot of guessing to it. We've got metrics now.
You're exactly right, and it does take into account the functional classification of the road, more weight to the bigger roads, the arterials and the collectors are weighted more, they have more traffic, you expect to deteriorate that. And you want to put more money into those roads because they're a lot more important than a small, I mean, I'm not gonna say somebody that lives on a little street.
I'm not going to say it's not important.
Hear about that tomorrow. But anyway, so do you have any questions? Does this make sense to you?
It does.
Got one question. Mr. Carr, how often does a 3D scan take place?
It's once, we've been doing it once every 5 years. We can pay for it and do it as many times as you want, but there is some analytical in here that there are deterioration curves, so they could predict the deterioration if we keep it dynamic, and then we reset the roads when we go in and do the work, and so we'll have a better view, but I would always hope that we could be able to do this full drive again at least every 5 years.
Thank you.
And just as you've been going through the state, have there been any surprises or anything that kind of, anything that was kind of interesting to you in looking through the data?
Well, just for me personally, when we designed, I told Hasco this morning, I was proud of it. So when we built McIntosh Parkway, we went in there and we utilized some technology. We had some reasons for it, but we tried to reduce the grading and hauling. We reduced the pavement thickness, the base, the rock, and the layers of asphalt, and we put a geotextile in between the layers for structural strength. And we were actually going for an award. So, and we came in runner-up on the award, but that road is still listed at excellent, and it's been open like 10 years. So, yes, that was a surprise. The rest of them seem to be kind of following along what you would expect them to do, but we did something different there, and it shows up in here. So,
that's awesome.
I'll brag a little bit about that. So,
Excellent.
Any other questions on this?
No,
Just
thanks.
for information, it was no action.
Yeah, no, thanks for the update.
Yes, and we can, when somebody calls and says, can you tell us when my road's gonna be paved? Well, we can answer the question by showing where it fits in and whether or not it's out there or how far out there. And it's very helpful, and they understand that it may not be next year because we're able to tell them why. So
Yeah.
it makes sense, so.
That's great. All right, any further discussion or questions? All right, thank you so much.
And I'm still up.
All right. Moving into item M, consideration of the list of streets proposed for maintenance under the Local Road Assistance Administration Grant, the LRA.
So the LRA is the Local Road Administration Grant. It's not the big one, it's not the LMA, so this is a smaller project. This is a funding source that it's not always there, but we think it's going to be there for a while anyway. So this is a grant for $608,547.40. There is no match for the city, it's 100%. So we have used the data that we just got and selected the streets to match. This was a program for the year one, and it's Summer Grove Parkway from the bridge approach, was that east to Lower Fayetteville Road, Stillwood Drive from Newnan Crossing Boulevard east to Southwind Circle, and then Windy Trail, which is right off of it, tag it on. We got it in there because the two are right together and it's eligible. So this, I'm asking you all to approve this list of streets or give me some other suggestions for our LRA. We're ready to go otherwise.
Can you just speak a little bit to, how the data was used or what made these streets the ones that you were most, especially since we just saw that huge pile of data? I'm interested in knowing.
Well, it was on that tab that suggests the 5-year plan.
Right.
So this was in year one, and given the dollar amount, year one is actually $2.5 million worth. So in order to fit the LRA program, we looked at it and tried to figure out what made sense logistically to put the streets together, and we we just recommended, we just pulled these out of the list. There's others in there, but this fit the 608,000. We want to make sure we don't leave anything on the table, so.
Yeah, very good. Any further discussion or questions?
No, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Thank you so
thank
much, Mr. Clark. Item N, we move to consideration of requests from Newnan Utilities pertaining to 3 properties. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you say, we have 3 properties we'd like to consider tonight. This first item is related to Millard Farmer Industrial Boulevard, known as the Bypass. We have a sewer lift station located just east of Coweta Equipment Rental. It's been there for several decades now. Small tract of land, basically a driveway, and then the sewer lift station in that green box there. The Crane family, which very well known, very generous family, they reached out last year and offered to donate the 2 acres, it's 2.2 acres that actually surrounds that lift station. They offered it in the spirit of, as we grow or we need to do maintenance, it allowed us to have more access to that lift station area. So we accepted the donation of the land, and we're here to ask you to ratify that.
Okay.
Uh,
So are we doing these all at once or one at a time?
Whatever your
Does
pleasure.
anyone object us looking to all of these at the same time?
No.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
seeing no objection, we'll go through all
Yes,
3 of
sir.
them.
Thank you. The next item is you own a watershed area that's out on the west side of the county off of Old Corinth Road. It's 363 acres. It has 2 reservoirs on it, and those reservoirs are fed by Brown Creek and Sandy Creek. We had an opportunity a couple of months ago to purchase a 14-acre neighboring property, which is the green box in the design here, or in the drawing here. And what that will allow us to do is it provides better access into that property. We have access off of Old Corinth Road now, but it's narrow, and there's a culvert that we have to cross and maneuver. With the purchase of this additional 14 acres, it allows us to enter that property at a different area, and we're not encumbered by crossing that culvert area that can flood and such. So we've purchased that and will deed it into the city. And then the third item, and I apologize for the zoom level here, out on the west side of the county, out off of Franklin Highway, we operate a compost site. There's over 2,000 acres there. On the northwest corner of that property is a switching substation. And a switching substation is basically substations that connect to other large substations. Individual customers aren't served for those, but these are substations that basically connect power plants and transmission lines. 3 or so years ago, Georgia Transmission contacted us that they were planning to make a more robust transmission line system in the state. So naturally, the questions we ask, and even more recently, are, is this related to data centers? And they say no. That even without data centers, these projects will continue. And the reason is, over the past 20 or 30 years, there hasn't been a lot of transmission lines at the 500,000 volt level that have been built. So there's been a process in the state of making a loop of 500,000 volt transmission lines. What the ask here is on the west side of our property, there's an existing transmission line that goes south down to Troup County. Is that they will purchase the right-of-way or an easement for 150 feet wide for a transmission line. This transmission line will begin at the Dresden substation on Franklin Highway on the northwest corner of the Newnan Utilities compost property down to Talbot County. And so Georgia Transmission Corporation is in the process of purchasing or acquiring those easements now. And they provided an estimate or an appraisal. We had an independent appraisal done, which was slightly higher in the 10% range. And they've agreed to pay at that price. And it's a total of, I think, $229,000 for that 150-foot swath of land. We're asking for you to approve that.
Great. So in terms of that easement, would that have any impact on any proposed or existing kind of development that's over that way?
It wouldn't for us. So the way this easement works as well is they pay initially they offer 95% of the appraised value, and then you can still use the property. Your limitations are that you can't put fixed structures on the property, and they don't want you to put trees over a certain height. I think it's 15 feet. So we can still use the property with our compost operation, but other development, I think where this one is a fit is running parallel to an existing transmission line that's already on that property. One path that they did follow is about 3/4 of the way down. They moved the transmission line on the east side of a current transmission line so that it wouldn't impact individual landowners. There's a dozen or so landowners there, so that it would not impact them.
Right.
It would just be on our property. So I think that was a
What's the
concession
closest road?
to help home.
What's the closest road to this?
On the north end, Ms. Jenkins, it is Franklin Highway, west side, Bruce Jackson Road. Then it goes south down through Smoky Road.
So this is basically for an aerial easement. They're going to do aerial.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And this is the easement only. We're not selling the property. It's just
That's right.
easement.
For the easement.
Okay, because on the one place said easement, another place said sale of the property. I just want to make sure and
Okay,
clarify.
yeah, it's a sale of an easement.
Gotcha. And then you said fixed structures, can't put those in. Does that include like driveways and stuff like that? Like if you need to put a drive extra?
Driveways are allowed.
Okay.
Any of those items that are surface mounted.
Yep.
Which is buildings.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the request from Newnan Utilities, approve them as presented item N?
So moved.
We had,
If I could add to the motion, because the last one, which is the sale of the property, was paid for originally, water and light funds, not taxpayer money.
is that that's the second property?
So the third, the Georgia Transmission easement.
Okay, all right.
Well, they've already purchased the property with taxpayer funds. This
Right.
is with non-taxpayer funds. But this property was purchased, I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that.
30, yes. Late 80s.
But it was purchased with ratepayer money, not city tax money. So as we had on the last one down here, that was the Georgia Power, motion should include that the proceeds go to water and light.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to come through the city's account.
So then we have an amendment to item to item N to include the payment to water and light, but otherwise as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips, thank you, and thank you for clarifying that this was not data centers or easements that would impact anyone. John Rich, please leave me alone. All right. Item O, consideration of an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the Downtown Development Authority and City of Newnan pertaining to 57 East Broad project.
I guess I can introduce some of this. We do have a chairperson of the Downtown Development Authority, Casey Smith, in the room if he wants to speak to you any questions in particular about the Downtown Development Authority's action. But at their meeting last week, the Downtown Development Authority entertained 4 documents that would allow for modification to the existing agreement to effectuate the 57 East development project. They took action on it and passed that. There's a document in here, the intergovernmental agreement, that is between the City Council and the Downtown Development Authority, so it's going to take action by this body. The other 3 documents, including an earnest money escrow agreement with Red Hills Hospitality, the hotel developer, a development agreement between CDA lease amendment between CDI and DDA. Those are agreements between the Downtown Development Authority and others. Tonight for the council is a conversation and consideration of that intergovernmental agreement. The amendments included in your packet.
All right. So in looking over this, I want to confirm, we have this, can you walk through a little bit of the change in the transaction here, the 2.4 million, and kind of where the change is in this amendment?
Mr. Sears and I may have to tag team
Oh,
this, as
whoever
well
can
as some
answer.
of the individuals in the office. As you know, I'm not an attorney. However, I was present during the conversations. So essentially what's happening is originally the city council created a project opportunity, an economic development deal for the 57 East project that involved using the Downtown Development Authority and the powers the Downtown Development Authority has to do real estate transactions, borrow money, effectuate this project. The deal was between the city, Downtown Development Authority, then the Downtown Development Authority to CDI as the master developer, and then CDI would work with the hotel developer. What has happened here is the agreements have been split. So the Downtown Development Authority would work directly with CDI as the master developer, and the DDA would work directly with Red Hills Hospitality as the hotel developer. So instead of it going from DDA to CDI to hotel, it's DDA to CDI, DDA to hotel.
And why are we splitting these deals?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to speak for the parties. I don't know, Mr. Sears got right up in his chair. I don't know if he wants to take a crack at this one, but in all candor, we've been working on this for 6 months, and I think we've kind of hit a headwind. And so in order to continue the project as the council originally approved it the end of last year with the parties that are involved now, this was an opportunity brought to us to allow it to continue. I don't know that I can't speak for the developers that are involved in it.
Right. And would this increase any of our financial exposure from this, for the city or even for the DDA?
I mean, in all of these projects, there's risk, right? Let's just put that out. Let's be true, right? There's risk in these projects. However, we feel that the groups that the City Council and Downtown Development Authority have gone into contract with from the beginning have done these projects and have the wherewithal to complete them. We have attorneys from Alston & Bird, well-known firm, working on our behalf, Mr. Sears working on your behalf and the Downtown Development Authority's behalf as well, to make sure that we have all the protections we can possibly have.
Well, but my question, and I don't believe that it does, but I want to make sure that I'm reading it correctly, is whether this IGA would in any way increase the financial liability that could, because there's kind of two questions here. And I'll start with the first one. The first is this increasing our potential liability under the existing agreement? Is it increasing it in any way?
No. The number has not changed.
Okay.
The individuals responsible for a number is being changed. If you recall my original description of the Downtown Development Authority to CDI, CDI to Red Hills. Red Hills was obligated under that original agreement to pay CDI. That no longer, if approved, that no longer exists. Red Hills will pay DDA directly. CDI works with DDA.
Right.
So it's a change, if you will.
And then the other question is because it sounds like there was sort of a lockup in the agreement and some issues there. Does any of that indicate any heightened risk from where we were in the original deal?
I think that's probably a question best answered by the developers, in all honesty. I mean, we've created, we believe, the firm we've engaged, and Mr. Sears' support, to create an environment that has mitigated risk to the best of our ability for the city and the Downtown Development Authority.
Okay.
So under the original agreement, you were saying that Red Hills had to work with CDI, and CDI then would work with us. So essentially a sub there. That somehow did not go. And so now CDI will work with us and the hotel will work with us. But if one of either of those parties does not perform, then where does that put us?
We're still in the fee position. We own the property. The Downtown Development Authority, but effectively, we own the property. So you still have the property. I mean, it's hard to game plan every scenario, right? That's what I said a minute ago. I think there's inherently risk.
I'm just asking about one, though.
But that's an opportunity, no different than other economic development projects. Sometimes they don't happen. But what we try to do is create a scenario where we can protect the interests of the city and the Downtown Development Authority and our downtown community. These individual or outfits don't get fee title to this until they make certain improvements. The CDI has to install public infrastructure to a point before they're able to have the title to the property. Hotels, the same. They don't get access to the property until they've created and completed improvements. Build a hotel, build buildings, build roads, install underground detention facilities, etc.
So on the current agreement, which was everybody was here in the same room, Red Hill, Caldwell Tanks, all of us, everybody agreed. So it's not like, we came up with an agreement that they weren't a part of. So in the current agreement, if Red Hills were not to follow through on a hotel, the city would retain the 0.67 acres, and we would not receive the $601,000, correct? Yeah. Okay. And the 0.67 acres is not large enough for a hotel without parking somewhere else. Okay, and so we allowed Caldwell Tanks and Red Hill to negotiate that whole thing, this whole 2.4 million, the parking, we were not part of that. Okay, right. They all came up with those numbers and those agreements. And I think the agreement is $90,000 a year for parking is what the hotel pays for parking, land owned not by the city, but by Caldwell Tanks. Okay. So we would be left with 0.67 acres, $600,000, which is the market, which is the appraisal value. Okay. So in the event the hotel didn't proceed, we would be, I think we'd be able to, the city would be able to recover the money, and we would have received the roughly 3.6 million from Caldwell Tanks minus the credit for the road. Okay, so the city would be made whole eventually, I think, on our appraisal value. What concerns me about this, and I understand it more, is what I heard, and I'm also on DDA, just so people know, I do serve on that, so I got to hear that discussion, and I've been on DDA for a lot of years before being on city council, so I've heard a lot of this over the years. So what I heard the other day was it came down to risk, and both parties, Red Hill and Caldwell Tanks, wanted to mitigate their risk. So in the current agreement, Red Hill comes up with a 2.4 right away, which, by the way, when they came here that day, that when we all got together and clapped and everything, they told us they had $6 million in the bank, and it was always important that they had skin in the game because we're gonna bond this out up to $30 million. We wanted them to have skin in the game. Those terms were used, and they had $6 million. So that was going to be how they came up with this 2.4. So we didn't worry about the 2.4 because they said they had it. And I do believe Caldwell Developments, they assumed they would be getting the 2.4 million as well up front. So now, as I understand it, Red Hill doesn't want to pay for the improvements until they're done. And Caldwell Tanks doesn't want to do the improvements because they may get stuck with a hotel site that they need to, that actually they don't own. They just improve, but they don't own. So it could be really messy real fast. And so our current agreement to me, and I said it in DDA, I said, I wish we could just stay on the current agreement because it was simple. The city of Newnan is simply selling land, and all the agreements that we have were protections so that we wouldn't get caught digging a deeper hole. We're already $8 million in it. We're trying to get 4.2 out of it. So we've already discounted it, so we didn't want to go a deeper hole. So this new agreement, what concerns me is this, is we would front the 2.4 to Caldwell Tanks, Caldwell Development, and then we would hope that Red Hill came through on their agreement to pay 2.4 million. Now, we're paying 2.4 million for these improvements that we really don't know if that's a real number or not. Like Mr. Carr was up here, he knows street costs because we do it every day. We're not in the development business, so we never cared to validate the 2.4 because it was always between Red Hill and Caldwell. So now I feel like this new agreement, which is I wish we'd stay with the current agreement, is we need to now understand what $2.4 million buys you. Because now 0.67 acres, 0.677 acres, you add the 2.4 million plus the 600,000 in land cost, you're at $3 million for 0.677 acres. That's a lot, I think, for Newnan, Georgia. And remember, if we're stuck with it, we don't have access to parking because the parking is owned by the developer, the master developer. So that's my concern, is that if it goes south, we are stuck. And I think we end up, the land all but the 0.6, so the 4.9 acres goes to the Caldwell Development Group for, I don't know, it's in the $100,000, $200,000 range for almost 5 acres. So I'm nervous about that, okay? I want to see this project happen. I mean, I think it's an awesome project. However, I'm nervous that what was agreed on 6 months ago, and it was a big celebration in this room. All parties are here. Now, they can't agree. And we're supposed to step in and remove everybody's risk, but we have no real guarantee in the end that the taxpayers will be made whole. And I don't think if Red Hills leaves without parking, I do not think we're going to find a hotel that will spend $3 million in downtown Newnan today for 0.677 acres, because it's not enough for a hotel with parking. You need about 2 acres.
And that's the point I was trying to make here, is that we're removing their risk but taking on more for ourselves.
That's it. Which is, and that's kind of the question I'm asking, is how does this agreement shift the risk? I do think, one thing that I do think we should consider in that is the risk of a non-completing deal, and that's part of why I want to get the color on the lockup here, is because if they are not going to be able to complete the deal absent this risk assessment, we have to discount the risk on that basis. But I am asking you, does this put us at more exposure, more liability, more, does this change the financials for the city? And, risk has a cost.
So may I make a suggestion? Because I don't want to shut this conversation down today, and I don't think we're going to come up with a solution tonight. There's clearly enough concern on council to warrant more discussions on this, and I would love us to have a separate session to talk about this, because that's how we arrived at the initial conversation, was to have everybody in the room talking about it. I think that is the way we should move forward to try and find a way forward on this, and not sit here and try and do this right here without everybody that needs to be present to answer questions.
I agree. I'm willing to come up with a compromise, but I think Councilwoman Jenkins is correct. I think we should have everybody in the room again.
Well, if I might add, we do have the applicant with CDI in here, and we do have the DDA in here, so wouldn't it be prudent to ask them some questions now? If you have some concerns which you voiced, and if you have those concerns, then we need to hear from those parties that are present right now to add to and maybe clear up some of the reason.
Absolutely, and I would invite anyone who has more insight on this to come forward.
I mean, I can understand, because something went sideways, and that was always, truthfully, has been my concern, and I voiced that up front with that, with the hotel up front. Quite frankly, I just never, well, anyway, I'm not going to go down that road, but if you guys want to come up here and share something, that would be great to help us move forward.
Good evening.
Evening.
Tom Grimes with CDI. I appreciate you all considering this, and it has been a long journey to get to this spot, which has changed dramatically over the last several years. We found this was a solution to move this project forward. We have arranged our investors, we've purchased land, we've started, we've got permits ready to be pulled that are approved at this moment. Our only goal was to be assured of payment, and we all work in that general arena where we work, but we expect to be paid. We've worked hard with Red Hills to make agreements work. Red Hills was brought to us by the city. We didn't go out searching for them. Every challenge that has arisen, we've tried to address it so that it is a fair answer for everyone involved. We don't think this really changes again, there's lots of lawyers that have been looking at this, but in general, the bond that was associated with the hotel included this amount, so it's not changing in our view. Again, our view is very different than y'all's. That you are being made whole when the bond is closed. And so that's what's been the hang-up, is that he couldn't raise the funds on land that was owned by the DDA prior to the bond being in place. And so this one sentence that was added to the lease agreement allowed for us to move this forward. We could do the complete project while the bond was being finalized and issued. And so basically it's a timing issue. We've bought all the pieces that we committed to doing in the time that we committed to this group. And then all of a sudden we're stalled because he can't commit to paying CDI until the bond's in place. He can't get the bond in place until the property's been improved, and he doesn't own the property. So the three of us are kind of all wanting the same thing, but we can't get there. And so this suggested solution here allows us to move forward with the DDA taking a less payment from us initially that should be recouped when the bond is issued. So it's just, to Mr. Craver's point, it's where the money comes from. It's not necessarily the value of the money.
Mr. Crimes, let me ask you this question. All right, so that was kind of a new piece you just mentioned. And I want to say thank you to all you're doing. I mean, I think you are not the one that's just dragging, right? And so, but you are standing up here. I'm just throwing this out. If it's the simple hang-up of, which is new to me, about not owning the land because they have a lease ability, okay? You have the lease with an option to buy, which is very standard. I mean, you go to most cities, there are land leases on these skyscrapers. So, but I'm not into that business too much, but land leases are very, very, very common. They're in Newnan, Georgia right now. They're banked all day long. Lake Raven, Lake Burton, all those, most of that land is land lease. $1 million homes on there. They're banked all the time. But anyway, what if we did this? I'm not saying we approve this tonight, but what if we went ahead and sold Red Hills the 0.677 acres, all right? They own it outright, contingent upon them doing a deal with Tom on the 2.4. And that removes that whole, if the whole thing comes down to they don't own the 0.677, let's just offer them to buy it up front and let them work the deal with Tom. And that way we remain as just land sellers. Because otherwise, this deal, when it was mentioned earlier, we become the hotel developer with this agreement right here. So that's a thought.
And I'll point out that since this is a new idea and we've got 3 new council members up here, I still think we need a work session instead of trying to solve it right here.
I agree. I'm just throwing that. I think there are ways to work around that.
They're here. If you want to have a work session, we might as well get as much information from these gentlemen as possible, so you can ask some questions here, and if it's necessary to have another work session, then so be it. But I don't think we should shut off the conversation here right now either.
Well, we're not going to shut off any conversation until discussion's been exhausted.
Well, period, yeah, so.
And so sorry, Paul, I thought you were done.
That's okay, I'm just trying to formulate my question here. From the start, I mean, and I will piggyback on what Jim said concerning, I know that you're not the one that's holding this up. You want to move forward and at warp speed, I know. The hotel is, and that whole bond issue and the financiers is, it seems to me that they've taken upon themselves and to create an opportunity to basically, I'll say, leverage perhaps, or hold us hostage in a way, because none of that talk was there when we first entered into this negotiation. Would you agree with that?
Completely.
Okay, well, he stood up here before us and said, hey, man, we're in, all's good, I've got this, I've got that. So clearly, he doesn't have any of that. Would that be safe to say? And even if you restructure this deal the way it is, there's no guarantee as to what is being said as to this guy stepping. He has created an element of doubt, and I think which is reasonable, quite frankly. So help me understand. I mean, these financiers, when they say one thing and they back up and do another, what were they attempting to accomplish by not moving forward with the deal before this bond and holding that as a really, quite frankly, a weak talking point?
Well, Mr. Sears may be able to help more with the bonds of this. I don't act with these type bonds, but I can give you my best estimate.
Well, but you've said face to face with these guys, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we've acted on every moment, every decision, every commitment we've said. We've purchased large tracts of property to offset the parking issue. We've bought tracts of land to make connectivity. We've got plans approved, ready to permit. And this was all supposed to transpire around January 1st of this year.
Right.
And so for the last 6 months, we've been patiently hoping to come up with anything that can move this forward, because I've got to pay my investors whether we move forward or not. So I'm trying to be as flexible as possible. I too am frustrated with the hotel route. By moving forward in this direction, there is the opportunity that this hotel is not the final one at the end of this, but the work will be in place, the site will be improved, and you could search out a different hotel. I can't do that because I don't own the property. Yes, sir. Excuse me.
There's where it's similar to where when a building is built and it's only built for one thing only, or a track is built for one and one thing only, to repurpose that into something else creates another set of issues. Would you agree? In other words, what you're saying is we inherit property back to us. We're only a hotel, most likely, or go out. We have to be, quite frankly, sitting up here convinced that is a hotel, what is needed there, could something different go in there, because we're having an issue with parking. That's why I'm saying, so from your perspective, could you take the whole thing and forget about the hotel and move on?
It changes the dynamic of the development. This was all centered around a hotel. That's what brought CDI to the table to start with, because the hotel was going to draw people, and it was going to bring, it was 125 rooms, so it was going to bring a group of people. So that made it appealing to build the market and the food hall and the restaurants and all these other pieces around it. The site itself could be utilized for most anything. The majority of the cost associated with these improvements are buried in the roads out there. It is the underground detention that serves the entire 5 acres. It is the upgrades to the water system, the power system, and the sewer system that serves all of this. So it could be an office building, it could be anything that fits in the CBD zoning. But it is most appealing to be a hotel because of the energy it brought with it. That was the piece that was most encouraged to us. And so with that, we went and purchased the county property across the street and dedicated that parking for that use, so that it helped assure that this was going to happen. And I know the board at that time jumped through a lot of hoops to make that happen. And we all worked, we thought we had a perfect plan, and then I guess Christmas got here and we all did our thing and took a little time, and then all of a sudden we're like, Red Hills, it's time for you to do your thing, and that's when this challenge came up. And this was a solution to the challenge that was recently brought to light.
And just, so you've already mentioned that you're making distributions. Do we know if Red Hills is making distributions at this point?
No, I feel sure not. I'm not in his business. Again, part of the structure of this was the city found them, they were bond financing him. All we had to do was provide what we said on the site. So again, it was a great win for us. It was a great win because the city could focus total on the hotel, and all we had to do was perform. So
And that's part of my concern here, is, you know, whether we do a work session or not. We've got essentially the good guys here, and, you know, not to say that anybody's is a bad guy necessarily, but, you know, we've got somebody sitting here making the distributions here. And you know, and you're kind of bearing a lot of the cost and the risk here. We are talking about maybe having more, you know, possibly having some risk offloaded onto us, which I don't think that our exposure is actually any different from what it would have been before, but it does raise this question of the underlying risk of the project. But I don't like that you're shouldering that cost. I think that's one of my hangups here. And so if we do want to have a work session or anything, we should be mindful of the time factor here, and maybe that's something we should consider during that work session, the fact that these costs are falling on somebody who has nothing to do with these issues.
Well, just really cost. Tom, in the current agreement, there's a rent commencement date.
yes, sir.
There's a lease commencement date, and then a rent commencement date.
Yes.
So have you, in terms of if that land's costing you, you're paying the city for anything, is the rent commencement triggered?
No, sir.
Has the lease triggered?
The lease is in place, the rent payment triggers when I pull the permit, when the land disturbance permit is
Correct.
issued.
So right now, you're not paying the city.
I'm not paying the
exactly,
city.
Exactly. So what you do outside of that, buying other land, you know, that's not, we didn't make you do that. That wasn't part of the agreement. I don't remember seeing that in the terms.
It was not written in the
Correct,
formal
exactly.
agreement,
Yep.
but the hotel needed the parking, so we went and bought the county in order to give him the parking.
Correct, because the way you designed it, you designed the .677 acres knowing that you were going to do parking off-site.
That's how the final plan is
Right,
at this
correct,
moment. Yes,
right,
sir.
'cause, yep. And again, the city council wasn't dealing directly with the hotel. You were, so we didn't get into all of the nuances of parking and 2.4 million. We just let you and Red Hill work that out. Yep.
Yeah, let me just say that, as I said at the other meeting, and for those of you who weren't on council at the time, it was a three-party agreement. If you look at the intergovernmental agreement, and one of the things we're changing is DDA can't go to another hotel developer because you have specified Red Hills. So that's one of the changes in the agreement to create that flexibility. All right. The other main thing the agreement is doing is switching the 2.4 over. Now, I don't want to get into, you know, second guessing other law firms and the advice they give, but Red Hills has a different law firm, and what they have told him once they've gotten into it, and is that with his agreements with Marriott and their ability to give a clean opinion for him to issue the bonds as the owner's rep, is that the infrastructure has to be in place. And we've got like a December 31st deadline with the Marriott agreement, or actually September, but he thinks he can get it extended, or that agreement with Marriott goes away. So I would say if you want to have a work session, we need to do it next week, because we either need to give a, you know, up or down on the agreement as soon as possible because of these other deadlines. Now, what has happened is changing the terms. We were not made aware by Red Hills that Tom was going to have the infrastructure in place. We originally and had hoped to issue the bonds in April, and all of this, and then all of a sudden, Evershed Southern said, well, we can't issue the bonds until the infrastructure is in place. Well, Red Hills ain't gonna guarantee you anything, as Tom was saying at this point, until the infrastructure is in place and he's able to close on the bonds. And so, you know, the idea is to sell him the land is not what we're gonna sell him the land and we're gonna get that, but the DDA is doing the financing for him on the issuance of the bonds and a pilot agreement to allow him to help during that, what is it, 10 years?
10 years,
5
total
years?
was 5 years.
5 years to 10 years to generate, so as he builds up his, you know, the number of stay nights at the hotel, all right? And so under those circumstances, he apparently, according to Evershed, can't do that until it's in place. Tom doesn't want to proceed unless he knows he's going to get paid. So this is kind of the catch-22, and so that's why the agreement shifts that once the bond issue, in other words, if we got to January and the bonds didn't close, and at the time that Tom has to, what is it, 4 years that you got to close on the land?
Yes, sir.
If at the end of 4 years, you know, when he closes, then if we don't have a hotel in place and the bonds issued, we get the 2.4 plus the 6 back, then the 2.4 comes off of his closing. So that is technically a little bit of the risk. But the idea is, Red Hills has said that if that they want to go forward, and if the infrastructure is in place, that they can close on the bond. So it's a catch-22 from, you know, the city's standpoint, but we had to come back to council because it is a fundamental change into how the funds come in and at what point in time. And so, yes, there's potential for exposure if Red Hills were to go away. There's also some, you know, exposure if Tom were to go belly up, you know, within the 4 years before he closed on the land. So there is somewhat exposure that's already right. But that's the whole reason for this. And we have worked, we've talked, Evershed Southern won't come off that opinion. So this is the only way that we came up with to be able to allow Tom to go forward and be sure that he can get that infrastructure in place so Red Hills can and will. That's a simple explanation of a complicated structure that we put in place a year ago.
And just to be clear, it sounds like there is not a path forward with the deal as currently structured because we can't get the opinion, thus the bonds, or thus the payment as required, correct? Yeah, so we're kind of deciding whether we want something to happen or not in some sense, or if we want to restructure the whole thing. Yeah.
So we kind of thought, I mean, I guess we thought, the way it was structured, is we kind of thought that the bonds were going to close in April. Tom would get 2.4 million. 2.4 million would be held by the trustee. And when Tom completed the work, then the 2.4 million would be paid. So, but the money would be there in that place. So what this is doing is let Tom know that there is money in that place if it gets to the point to close, and it just comes off the purchase price. And the city then, or DDA would have to cover that balance then with another person. But, you know, the problem with the 2.4 is, as he said, it's a single site, even though it's got two pieces, the CDI piece and the hotel piece, and you can't develop them separately. In other words, you would, as you said, not only for the parking, but for stormwater retention and other things, you may have to take for the hotel, you know, more than 2 acres to be able to put it on there. So it, again, it's, the 2.4 is not only pipes, sanitary pipes and water and power site, but it's the use of stormwater retention across the site. So, but like I say, if you do want to have work session, maybe get Red Hills up here, I would ask that you do it as quickly as possible, because we've got a bunch of people sitting on ready and Tom sitting on ready. And if they need to know, one way or the other.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I mean, I know, I understand the deal. I understand the solution that's being presented. I understand how it removes the current barriers that are in place for all the parties involved. I think it is a smart solution to kind of fix it all. It may seem more complicated and wildly risky, but at the end of the day, it moves this important project forward, and it gets the people and investors, they need risk removed. We see it every day in businesses making decisions of when they're going to invest and where, and they want the risk removed. And sometimes you as an entity have to help reduce that risk for them to allow a project to be successful. And I think this solution does that. I think it removes some of that risk, and it ultimately doesn't really change the deal. 2.4 is still 2.4. It's just changing the timing of when actions actually happen. It allows Tom to pull his permit, get the property going. It allows the bonds to then move forward. It allows them to do the bonds. The Red Hills take the site, and we get a hotel that anchors this site. So I'm in favor of this solution. I'm in favor of this path forward. It makes sense to wrap this up and move it forward.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see the site done. And I just don't see the government's role is removing the risk in the private enterprise, in the private industry. I mean, we're in ordinances, we're in zoning, we're in safety. What concerns me is if it doesn't go right, and it hasn't gone correctly so far. So we would be stuck with 0.677 acres that we would need to sell for $3 million. Okay, that's like 4.4 million per acre. So that's what concerns me is DDA with me trying to find a hotel to fit on 6.67. Because remember, this whole thing started as wanting a hotel. So that's my concern. I would love for us to get Red Hill up here. Let's talk to them about some options. Because I'm not a bond expert, but we see, every time an entity bonds, a municipality bonds, a government bonds private industry, they take possession of the property and they lease it back until the bond's paid off. So the whole thing is based on leased property. So this whole, so if we look at I'd love to get the Development Authority people to come in and tell us about deals that go on. So I'm not an expert, but that part doesn't make a whole lot of sense of the why. But I'd love to have a work session, quickly get Red Hill up here and maybe their attorney, and let's figure out there's a way to push this thing forward. But right now, this thing makes me nervous because I don't feel like we have a party that really is all there like I thought they were.
Mr. Sears, have you been in communication with Red Hills attorneys?
No, I've not.
Okay, so they really kind of just sent us a letter or whatever?
Well, we've been on conference calls
All right.
together, but most of the heavy lifting was between Austin and Bird and their stuff, because it all goes towards the bonding aspect of what's going on. And there are some other agreements in principle. Red Hills is going to give a $300,000 letter of credit that if they do walk in the end and don't issue the bond, and there's no legal reason, it's a financial reason, then the city would get that letter of credit, 300, or escrow account, cash placed in the escrow account, we get 300. I mean, subtract that off from 3 million to 2.7. But they have in principle agreed to do that, but that would be between them, and would need
So can I ask you, I'm just trying to get my mind around this. I'm going to assume in this discussion that, let's just say, for the sake of this, Red Hill does not come through. It's just a matter of we get the land back. Tell me the scenario if what's it going to look like if Red Hill doesn't come through.
Well,
And which I
through with this and Red Hill doesn't produce, then it's like Tom's developing around it, and you've got a pad-ready site. Tom is committed, now whether or not the DDA would do this, or it would be the hotel, subsequent hotel developer, to lease space. And he's building the parking deck, with the understanding that the hotel, there will be lease space, in the, parking deck for the hotel. And so, you know, we would have to work out, that agreement going forward. And then, you know, transfer that to the subsequent hotel operator at that point. So there would be some other things that would go forward. Right now, that agreement is between Red Hills and CDI. But
I mean,
what Tom is leasing is everything but the 0.67 acres. That is still not under lease.
I'm trying to figure out what. I mean, I agree with Scott, and I want to see this thing move forward. And with y'all up here answering this question, how much more information do we need in a work session? That's what make it clear to me what you need for the purpose of having a work session that we're not getting here right now. That's
There's
what
a
I
whole lot
want
of
to know.
speculation on the part of Red Hills. They're not here to say what their path forward will be and what the hangup was.
So let me ask you a question. Let's just say we have a work session and Red Hill doesn't show. What are you going to do then?
Or what's the difference?
I mean, that's really what it
right
boils down to right now. That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom line. Red Hill, let's just say they're going to walk.
I mean, we could assume
that's
that
what
same
we're
thing about
asking
anybody
right
coming
here.
to a city council meeting. We don't know until they don't.
Well, if we ask them to call in right now, ask them right now.
I mean,
Okay, I'm just telling you, I'm not gonna vote for this until I hear from them.
well,
Yeah,
if we
I
call
wanna
for
be
a
able to
vote,
vote
you don't
yes.
have to vote, though. I mean, that's up to you.
Yeah, I want to be able to vote yes for this, but I can't the way it's written because it creates a situation where DDA is now in the developer business, and they would potentially be stuck with 0.677 acres with no parking, unless they then negotiate a whole nother agreement with a private industry for $3 million. So what I'd like to do, if there's a way, I just threw out, do we just sell them the 0.677 up front? Do we meet halfway on this 2.4? I mean, that's what I'd like to brainstorm and see what we could do to remove what could potentially happen if Red Hill doesn't go through. So that's why I'd like to have more talk on it. But right now, I'm a no on the current thing.
I just want to bring up that, I'm Casey, I'm the chairman of the Downtown Development Authority. And this was a project that was brought to us by the city. And we are the legal entity that makes these projects happen. And that's what we're here for. So all this was brought to us, we went through it all. We spent a lot of time talking about it and trying to figure this out. And we come to the thing, and Jim, you said, the downtown, we are there to help develop. And we went through all of this with the attorneys that the city has hired for us, with Brad, Cletus, Hasco. We've all looked through this, and that's why we brought it to vote at our meeting last week. And we feel like this is a project that we want to see go forward. And there's risk on everything. And it's the government's job to take away all risk from that, to make projects viable. And this is a project that we feel like is a game changer for the city, especially downtown. It's the Downtown Development Authority, that's what our job is to look at projects and find out what can it do to really help energize downtown. This is a huge project for that. So the project was you brought to us, and we've looked at it, and it's not going forward the way it is. Like Mr. Bird said, this is something that we've come to some agreements that we feel comfortable with, and that's why we voted to push this on, that y'all have, and that's, but it's ultimately your decision. But that's what y'all asked us to do as a downtown development authority, is to look at these projects and familiarize ourselves with these projects and to be able to decide if this is a project that we feel comfortable going forward with. And we did. So if that helps with anything.
Thanks so much.
I feel like supporting this also signals to Red Hills Hospitality that we are still very much in support of this, that we're wanting to meet the timelines, and that we're all working in good faith to make this happen. And so, again, just a simple voting for this in itself removes some of the risk just in the feel of the deal. It signals to Red Hill that we want them to move forward, and then that can signal to their investors that they have a city who's behind this project wholeheartedly, and we need to get Mr. Crowns moving to meet these timelines. So just another takeaway that I feel like
Red
voting
Hill
for the
did call
solution
into our
is.
meeting and was here. They were on, over the phone. So he's really wants this project done. But like I said, it's, everything's got risk. And I agree. I mean, I'm a business person, and I like to do things and not have no risk also. So if I can do something to do that, I'm gonna fight for it. And so I do think that what we have right now is a chicken and an egg. We're trying to figure it out. And I feel confident that he's listening to his attorneys, Tom's listening to his attorneys, the city's listening to their attorneys, and sometimes you got to kind of step in and go, hey, hold on, fellas, we got to move forward with this deal. So.
And not to speak for Red Hills, but he remains committed to the project. He, as Casey said, he called in, committed to it. He wants this to move forward. He's under the gun now for the Marriott timeframe to run out. So if we want to have a work session, we need to do it quickly, because that window gets smaller and smaller, and the franchise agreement he does have a end to it, and he says they don't let them sit around not being used. This is a target market that they would like to have this hotel open. They would like him to be the operator, and he's prepared to do it. But it does, I mean, to the point we're here in June when we thought we would be dedicating roads in June. And so that sense of urgency, we're running up against a deadline there.
So if I could, as I understand the DDA authority granted by the state, they have the authority to, one of their tasks is to improve the downtown areas, and that's by this means. And so this body vested the DDA and entrusted them with this property to do what's best. The DDA, through much deliberation and over the course of time, we have 2 members here present with us, has determined that this is a good project for the downtown area. And so I've got to go with, the vote at the DDA was for this amendment was what? 3-1. I mean, I have to go with, we've entrusted the DDA to make a good decision. I have to trust that the DDA has come up with a good decision and a good means to work through this process, because it truly is a chicken or the egg, or the dog chasing his own tail type thing here. At some point, everybody needs money to start the work, but nobody has the money because they can't get the money. And it's just it's a vicious cycle, and it's going to continue on. So I appreciate the DDA, the time and effort you've put into this, with CDI, with Red Hills, because there has been a whole lot of effort, and even by this body. So I understand this might not be the best means to accomplish it. However, it's at this point, we only have so much time. Using a time critical kind of discernment on this, we're making the best choice we can at this point, just like the DDA did, with Marriott holding the gun, with the bond being times, we've got numerous time crunches we're up against. And I would love to have, lots of time to deliberate, get more opinions, get more, all this good stuff. Red Hills has, they've collateralized $300,000 in a letter to us. They've done what they can. At this point, it appears, from my vantage point, not having sat in the DDA meetings and stuff like that, again, that y'all have done your due diligence and appropriately deliberated this matter. So I think, at some point we just have to just pull the trigger and go. And I'm a very much, I understand as a taxpayer and all the taxpayers and this is taxpayer dollars that we're talking about here. And that's not to be taken lightly in the least. But I think ultimately we've went through similar type things, if I remember correctly, with the university project and the bonding with that. I mean, so this isn't our first time through this rodeo. I think at some point we just, Ms. Jenkins was here for that. And it still proceeded, and it was able to get completed, so.
And it was very well vetted, and we knew what we were getting into.
And it was
we
another
did perform.
government entity, but it
That's
still
right.
had,
So
certain
it's not the same thing.
hiccups.
I mean, to me, the deadlines are not new. People knew what they were, and if we've been dealing with this since January, then this should have been to us a lot earlier. And so now putting us in this position where we have to make a decision without going through a really proper vetting process for us, because there is a reason it comes back to us, because if they could just do this on their own, they'd have just done this on their own. But they do need us. So at the end of the day, I still have my duty to look at this and do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm not about to let this go with reservations and not having even talked to all the parties involved and make a decision. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not about to sit here and shirk that duty right now. I'm not doing that.
I guess I was aware of this before this meeting. Like, I looked at the agenda packet last week when it was published, and I have spoken to quite a few interested parties. I'm ready to move forward with this.
And I'll piggyback on that too. This has been in the wind through conversations for quite some time. So this is not something that's just been sprung up. So
I just want to confirm a few things. Mr. Sears, if I could ask you some of this. Again, and I'm sorry if I'm beating a dead horse here, but I want to make sure that we are not adding any further payment obligations to the city or any further, is that correct that we're not adding, that the city is not adding on any further payment obligations on top of what we already have agreed to? This is just changing the parties between them.
Well, keep in mind, the city or the DDA have no payment obligation.
Right.
Okay, it's none. What you're obligating yourself is potentially recovering less money.
And that's
in the short term, perhaps, if the bonds don't close. And then maybe in the long term, if you're not able to find a hotel developer willing to pay, well, $3 million less $300,000. So, the DDA or the city at this point is coming out of any money.
Well, and I think my point here is that in terms of the delta between these deals, I think the cap and increased exposure is the 2.4 or 2.7 change there. Like, we're not, that's kind of what we're looking at as the risk here, right? Is just that in terms of the difference between the two.
Maximum would be the 2.4.
Right.
All right, but potentially, as Mr. Thompson said, it could be 3, because the 2.4 is for the infrastructure, and then you don't get paid the $600,000 for the land.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but you're not coming out of pocket anymore.
No, well, and the question is just the difference in risk, or in difference in obligation. So but it wouldn't be more than the 2.4, 2.73, wherever that is. I don't love it, but where it is.
I don't know how you handle this, but I'm ready to move forward with a vote, so.
And if we have a motion, now the question before us is, do we want a motion to have a work session, or do we want to go on and vote this up or down? And I will accept any input from.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a work session.
Second.
Try to negotiate something in between.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On whether we have the work
Could
session.
could we have discussion about the work session? Because I have a question regarding what is our time constraints for the amount of advertising prior to having a work session, and does it actually adequately? Do we actually have time to do that before our deadlines for this?
24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, then the question would be, we would be pushing the actual item itself out until our next meeting, which is a ways down the road.
Perhaps.
Well, then you run schedule issues with the attorneys, et cetera, so. Anyway, all right, so.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on having a work session? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of having a work session for this purpose?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, then that fails. Now do we have a motion for the motion before us?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So to consider we have the motion. I just want to clarify so that nobody gets confused and for the record. The motion for work session failed. We're motioning, the motion here is to consider an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the Downtown Development Authority and the City of Newnan pertaining to 57 East Broad. So we're actually considering the motion as printed on the agenda. All in favor of adopting that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right. With that, it carries. The motion carries. Thank you. All right. With that, we move into unfinished business. Item P, the presentation from WLA Studios for the Draft Arboretum Master Plan. I apologize to everyone who wasn't expecting a deep discussion of bonding.
Well, thank you all so much for having us, and it's great to work with you all again. It's the second project we've gotten to work with the City of Newnan on, and we were doing the secondary master plan, and that was a really awesome project to work on, and this one has been a delight as well, so thank you so much. My name is Liz Solomon. I'm a landscape architect in the WLA Studio, and we're based in Athens. So what I'm presenting today is a consolidated master plan, so we've had, our process has been, we met with a stakeholder group that city manager's kind of put together for us, helped us kind of pull together some interested parties, and we also presented a concept level design and put that out for public input, and then what we're going to be talking about today, we'll review all these things a little bit, but what we're going to be talking about today is our results of the consolidated master plan. We've submitted a draft report for you all to review. Any and all questions, concerns, changes, edits, typos, all those things we still have plenty of time to incorporate all of those changes. Just wanted to give you all kind of where we're at. So just to kind of talk about the origin of this project, this is coming out of Newnan, seeing that project as sort of coming to a close in its natural progression of cleaning up after the tornado swept away a lot of trees in town. So this idea of an arboretum is somewhere the city's already had this property for a number of years, and they're looking at, and I should say the property that we're looking at is just south of Newnan Public Works and Ruth Hill Elementary School. So it's Sunset Lane is on the south, or 4th Street Extension is on the south, Boone Drive is on the east, and Sunset Lane is on the west. So just so everyone's aware what we're talking about here. So the city's had this property for a number of years, and it was designated for sort of a park or green open space space kind of use, and the idea of an arboretum came up. So an arboretum is not just a park. It's serves a scientific purpose. It's a collection of trees and woody plants. So it's similar to a botanical garden, but focused specifically on trees. And importantly, there's an organization dedicated to its stewardship and managing the collection of trees. So it's meant to be an educational institution. So working in our conversations with the stakeholder groups, we sort of started to guide the mission and purpose of this project. And the purpose we've determined, the Newnan Arboretum is envisioned as a place to connect with and learn about the native plants and trees and communities, or native trees and plant communities of the Southeast. So not just Georgia, but also we wanted to include the Southeast writ large. The mission of the Arboretum is to promote environmental literacy and the importance of trees by serving as an educational resource for the citizens of Newnan, Georgia, and the Southeast. So one thing, moving into sort of our concept level plans, we were looking at, sort of some common elements for all of the projects. We wanted to make sure that in all of our concepts, we were presenting some common elements that were, programmatic and functional, that were just going to be necessary. So that's your bathrooms, that's your parking, that's what type of path surfaces. And importantly, in every single concept we looked at how the link trail would move through the site. We looked at how we could improve water quality. There's an urban stream condition in the site that has been dammed up many, many years ago, and that dam is in poor condition, so something needs to happen with that dam to make it safe. And it's also got depleted water levels, so it doesn't really serve much of a function as a pond anymore. It's more of a wetland condition currently. And then we also wanted to ensure that all, in order to have the most access to this site, that as many of the site features as possible would be ADA accessible. And then, as far as how we approach this project, we're looking at native plants. Our other arboretums consider collections that are maybe plants from all over the world or things like that, but we wanted to focus this project on plants that are native to the state, the Southeast and South Georgia, because a lot of us aren't very familiar with our own native ecologies, and we wanted to make sure that young people growing up in Newnan would understand the plants that are supposed to be here, where they, the plant communities that they are naturally existing within. That's something you may not see in your everyday life. So in our pre-concept designs, we kind of had some fun names for them: Piedmont Passive, Piedmont Patchwork, Piedmont Processes, and all those we're really saying is just that these are sort of three different approaches with similar programmatic elements, not all the same. In this first concept, this was sort of exploring rehabilitating the existing farm pond and making it larger. We're not certain that the current flows from the stream running north to south of the property would actually be able to really support that. So that was sort of kind of nixed early on. One thing we did like about this concept was that there was we were showing like a propagation area somewhere for the city to be able to produce trees and be able to distribute those within the community. This concept, there were some things that people didn't like about the location of the parking, or maybe how the link trail moved through the site. This second concept was sort of looking at working with the existing site condition as much as possible, so kind of keeping that wetland condition that's currently there. And some of the things that came out of this one is, people felt like the path system maybe wasn't as robust, or things like that. So some of these things we started pulling out of these concepts. We kind of intentionally, in the way that we designed this, pulled out different elements of these designs so that into each of these three concepts, so that it would really force the public and the steering committee to really think about what they liked about each design and articulate that individually. And then in concept 3, we were really looking at this one as a science education focus. That was kind of the main way of differentiating this design. And this one got really great feedback both from the steering committee and from the public. So people really liked the science education concept as presented, and and there were several named features or, programmatic areas that kind of provides an opportunity for potential donor relationships, those kind of things. And then I think the main takeaway from this one was that, the path network was easy to expand. The link kind of travels right through the center of the site. And I know it's hard to see because everything's really small, but we'll get into the consolidated master plan where you'll get to see all these things in a second. So one of the main things is that this one didn't have a primary parking area in its original concept. It was using the Ruth Hill Elementary School parking lot as sort of the primary parking, and we wanted to, one of the things that came out of our conversations was kind of like centering the hub of activity towards the south here. So in our public input, the city put out a public survey asking for feedback. People responded via email and on Facebook. We also attended a market day event, which was really well received, and we had our conceptual designs up at the market day event. We had planned on attending the Willie Pritchett Day event that's held at Charlie Neal Homes every day, but that event was canceled, unfortunately. So there's, we've received some public input. Of course, this is a concept level design, and there will be many more opportunities for public input as the design progresses into schematic design and CDs. So there's a lot of opportunities here to continue to gather public feedback and continue to incorporate that into the design. So just as you're looking at these things, these are shapes on a page. They don't have to go in this particular specific arrangement or whatever. These are, the master plan level is meant to be concept level design, and all of these things are able to be, adjusted as the design process continues. So some of the things that we heard from folks was overall, really positive support and verbal support from folks at the market day event. There was, this is a little bit hard to read, but concept 3 had stronger preference. Those are folks that called it out specifically. But overall, I did sort of a thematic analysis of the terminology that people were using in their description, their feedback, and kind of the top terms that came to mind were that more public green space, more parks, more access to nature, outdoor opportunities, because of family-friendly spaces. People really talked about lighting. Interestingly, there was a lot of interest in edible and medicinal plants, which I thought was interesting, and a lot of interest in the educational components. So folks that were responding to option 3 really liked the science education aspects of that design. So this is the consolidated master plan that we came up with, and this, like I said, this incorporates elements of all 3 sections. So just to kind of I know the topo's sort of showing up on the screen a little heavier than I had anticipated, so it's a little distracting, but just to walk you all through this is the link trail through here, and it seems a little squiggly, but that's accommodating for ADA accessibility along some steeper grades and trying to reduce our, reduce our grading. We're trying to have as light a touch as we can. This concept is showing a stream being restored through the center of the site from north to south. This is an urban conditioned stream, so we're trying to improve water quality, and that improves downstream water quality. If you improve water quality upstream, you're improving downstream water quality. So we're looking at some sort of sediment control up at the north, and we're looking at sort of continuing some of the wetland condition, because when I went back in there a few weeks ago, there's some really cool stuff going on. There's cattails and some cool native wetland plants and critter paw prints and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, it would be really great to, in this design, retain, and for the development of the project, it helps with the development cost, to retain some of the existing wetland condition towards the center of the site, to both preserve existing trees as much as possible and that those, not to truck out as much soil, basically. And then, so towards the center down here, we've got your main parking area and the drop-off loop. We talked about early on in the project using the existing Ruth Hill Elementary School parking lot as auxiliary parking for buses waiting or larger gatherings. And there'd be an access point here with a little bit of ADA accessible parking there, and your handicap parking is down here as well. This building down here is envisioned as a restroom facility with water fountain and all those kind of necessary amenities. To the side here is a little bit of a maintenance area and laydown yard, materials, that kind of thing for staff. And then up here to the north, there's kind of more of a play area. And I have some sort of detail images of all of these areas, so I just wanted to kind of give you all the the overall. But this is envisioned as kind of a nature play area. We're calling the Adventure Hub. There's a forest classroom at the top here for educational reasons, right close to the elementary school here with a little trail that'll go between it. And then this is Treetop Traverse is envisioned as kind of a treetop walk where you're going up through into the canopy of the trees on a boardwalk, and that would also be ADA accessible. So this is some detail area plans here. Again, you're not going to build this exact building, but this is just meant to evoke kind of a feeling of what the space could be like at the entrance here. Again, this is just intended to sort of spark conversation and give you a visual of what something could look like. So that's sort of detail of that area here. We're showing signage, some buyer retention for the parking, that kind of thing. This is that area called the Adventure Hub that I was talking about earlier. We're envisioning this as an educational nature play area, so that's teaching kids about trees, but also providing some sort of unstructured play. So a combination of education and play. And parents have your restrooms and pavilions really close by, easy to have some shade and somewhere to sit. This area down here called the Wetland Discovery Walk is an ADA accessible boardwalk with these science field stations along the path here, and they are intended to be places where you could bring a class group or some group on a tour or something like that, and you could go here and get a little bit of a closer look at the ecology that's happening in this area. This is a little bit of detail of that elevated boardwalk condition. If y'all have ever been to the Fernbank Museum, it could look something similar to that, this sort of elevated boardwalk area that kind of lets you feel like you're up in the trees. So it'd be kind of exciting for kids. And that's just a little detail of that parking area up at Retail. So just to kind of break down what were some of these key takeaways, we're showing 3 main gateways here on sort of the 3 main roads, and our circulation network forms a larger loop, but also the link trail goes all the way across here to manage the access and pedestrian crossings here and perhaps up here is what we're showing. And you'd also want to manage pedestrian crossings down here to make sure everybody can cross the street safely. This blue, as far as accessibility, this blue loop here is fully ADA accessible, as well as the Wetland Discovery Walk. So this would be where you would essentially have all of the major site components are ADA accessible. So anyone could access all of those great features. These nature trails off to the side are sort of meant to offer a different experience, a little bit more if you're a runner and you want to go for a longer run, you have more of a longer loop trail that connects all the way through. So there's some different levels of service, and those would be accompanied with sort of different trail services as well. So that's kind of the main takeaways there. I just wanted to give you all kind of the sort of the things I want you all to take away from this is that, the link is going to be pretty critical through the center of this. If we're bringing that right into the center of the site, it's going to be a great stop off on the trail. You'll be able to get water, fill up water, go to the restroom, those kind of things. We'll be improving water quality on site, and as well as upstream and downstream. The city owns the property to the north and has the opportunity to improve that as well if that's of interest. This will add potentially thousands of trees to the urban tree canopy right in the center of town. We're on the west side of you know, folks in this area may not have a lot of access to nature. There's not a lot of nature-type parks in this area, and it would be great to provide that opportunity for folks living in these neighborhoods to be able to have some, you know, some respite, some experience and contact with nature right in their backyard. This will be an educational resource for the community, but especially local schools, and I show that in some diagrams in the report where I'm showing the proximity to local schools. We're seeing this as, you know, a local gem and a regional destination, and one of our, you know, the reasons we went with this science education sort of focus is that it kind of helps bring a stronger case for the grant that y'all will be applying for from Georgia DNR, that sort of builds a stronger case that this would be, have a regional level impact, regional level draw, as well as education opportunities. Yeah, I think that's kind of the main things. Any questions?
Thank you. So I have a couple questions. You mentioned that there's further opportunities for public input. We had an event at Market Day. We had the, you know, online outreach. Who did we have from the neighborhoods adjacent to this outreached to, or on the steering committee or whatever it is for this?
Committee, we had Sandra Strozier from the Housing Authority, and she, we had coordinated with her to try to attend the Willie Pritchett Day event. That is an annual event at Charlie Neal Homes. Unfortunately, that event was canceled, and there wasn't an alternate opportunity in our project timeline, so unfortunately that one fell through, but that was the plan to work directly with the Charlie Neal Homes residents there in that meeting.
And what is the plan to engage them moving forward?
I think that we would love to reschedule something, you know, in the future. This project has a limited timeline because of the grant application in the fall, so we're trying to make sure we get this wrapped up for everybody so that we can start applying for grant funding.
So again, can I get a firm commitment from you to reach out to the people who are actually living adjacent to this park?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we plan to attend that, and you know, we're contracted under y'all. We have a contract budget. You know, we're trying to work within the budget. But, you know, I'm going to keep trying to reach out to them and reschedule something. You know, I was offered the alternative of us hosting our own event. That wasn't something that we had budgeted in our, you know, our firm to host our own event and provide food. That's not something we had budgeted in our project, but I'd love to be, if there was another opportunity to come out and meet that same group of folks, we'd love to do it.
Let me give you a couple of suggestions then on how to reach people in the community. The Housing Authority has a self-sufficiency group that meets regularly. I'm sure Sandra told you about that, and if she didn't, there is that opportunity.
Okay, that's great.
Yes, she also has a newsletter that goes out to her residents that could very well have the survey in it or a link to it. There are 3 or 4 large churches on that side of town that have a lot of people who live in the neighborhood that attend those churches. I'm certain that those pastors would be happy to help weigh in on this park. And then, did you talk to Ruth Hill's parent-teacher organization?
Not the parent-teacher organization, but we worked with the, like Donald White he's the science education coordinator with the Coweta School District, and we worked with him to kind of get some contact with the teachers, and we had a meeting with some teachers, we requested feedback.
From Ruth Hill?
At Ruth Hill,
Okay.
yeah. We didn't really hear anything back, unfortunately, but we met with, I think it was the 7th grade teacher, actually it was the 7th grade teachers for the whole school district, I believe, yeah, that we met with. And, you know, we kept reaching out for different opportunities of getting some feedback, and we just kind of didn't really hear much, so.
And then there's a Boys and Girls Club on that side of town as well.
Okay.
There are a lot of kids in the community attend after school and that kind of thing that attend. As a matter of fact, there's a bus that goes from Ruth Hill to some of these places. So there are lots of ways to communicate with the people in the community over there.
And citywide.
No, citywide, but, you know, particularly if it's going to be, you know, in their backyard. To that same point, so there were a couple items in one of the presentations that was circulated to us with a concern about, so the water had been tested and found high levels of E. coli. But there were 2 tests done, so can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so, the first, and I think it was done by Newnan, New Utilities did the test, and the first test came back with elevated levels of E. coli and ammonia and some other things, and, you know, when I was looking at the levels, I was like, this is crazy, this is like a sewer leak level, you know, and so we were very alarmed, and so they went back out like right away after we, you know, talked about the results and retested it, and they came way down. So I think that there must have been, it literally was like they took the sample next to a deer poop or something. Like it was something that level of concern in the initial thing. So it does appear that, I think that monitoring and water quality testing should continue, but it does appear that there was initially an anomalous result.
Well, we've only done the 2 tests, correct?
Correct, and I do think that, yeah, but like I said, I do think that monitoring, and I say in the report, like monitoring should be like continuous during this process.
And what does continuous monitoring look like from that perspective?
I'm not a water quality expert, but I would refer to someone who is a water quality expert, and they would probably provide a recommended timeline.
Okay. Another point here, there were some elements in there that had been, well, first off, in terms of our comprehensive plan, one of the items that we've heard from citizens they really want to see is more gathering places, more places where they can kind of have this up. And I hear you talking about large gatherings, but in one of the reports that was circulated, there was a bar on large gatherings. I think it was loud music, family reunions, and other items. Leaving aside the issues with that specific list, again, you know, where did that kind of notion of barring those kinds of events come from, especially considering that, you know, the community that could most benefit from them was not consulted?
Sure, so when we were talking with our steering committee, you know, some of the conversations that came up was what's the appropriate uses for the site, right? So in considering this site as more of a scientific and research and educational type of facility, you know, versus any other city park, you know, it's a little bit more of a specialized use. So we were considering that those larger group gatherings can be really hard on a site. They can cause a lot of compaction. They can, you know, cause a lot of issues as far as impact to the site. And if you're trying to do ecological restoration on a site, you know, you want to reduce those impacts, right? So that's one issue, but also, you know, just about like wildlife habitat and creating like that kind of nature feeling of it being a more quiet and respectful type of environment. You know, we kind of came through those conversations and that large group gatherings may not be an appropriate use, but again, this is y'all's community and this is your constituents. So I think if you hear, you know, that need is not being met and this is the site where you think it's appropriate to do that, I think that can be revisited. So those were coming out of our conversations as far as what we thought would be appropriate uses, but again, this is something that could change.
Well, so, you know, and I'm very happy that we're talking about some investment on the west side. You know, it's a good conversation to have. It's something that's sorely needed. But the estimates we've got here are $250,000 a year every year moving forward for maintenance on this park, which I think would take our park maintenance budget up by upwards of 20%, a pretty significant increase. On a site that, again, you know, whatever conversations you may have had, they did not include the community who is going to be most using this park as the people adjacent to it. They haven't been looped in. They haven't been consulted. This is their backyard, and, you know, we haven't heard what they want there. So we're making an investment that doesn't include the people who we should be investing in. And I have serious concerns about, you know, the E. coli bit and making sure that we're keeping, because, you know, I'm glad to invest on that side of town. I think we should be, but I don't want to spend $250,000 a year forever on a park that the community wasn't consulted on, that they may not be able to use for the purposes that they most care about, and that frankly might poison their kids. So that's what well, I understand, but when you do 2 tests and one of them comes back with the levels of E. coli that you're talking about, like a sewage leak, I think it requires more than 2 tests to ensure that we're keeping the kids on, because the kids on that side of town deserve to be as safe as anywhere else. And so, you know, all that to say, you know, I'm interested in seeing some of this budget play out, especially since again, that's a significant commitment. That's $250,000 every year moving forward. And, you know, we need to take very seriously whatever we build there, we need to make sure that we're cleaning up whatever E. coli may or may not be in the water, and something we should take very seriously. And if we're going to move forward with this has to include the community that's there. And we were able to reach out to Market Day. We're always able to reach out to Market Day. We're always able to reach out to the folks downtown. But this community matters, and this is the community where we're potentially putting this park. And so I think it would be galling for us to move forward with this without actually doing the footwork and doing the outreach to that community. So those are my questions and feedback points, but that's all I've got.
I do have a question. Your conversation sparked some thoughts. Had there been any discussion during all of the planning to have a portion of this property be that kind of gathering space along the link? You know, kind of a more than just all of it as the arboretum. Because I understand your concerns about, you know, protecting the arboretum because of its scientific reasons and all that. But does the whole thing have to be the arboretum? Can some of it be space for the park and for other activities that are more active, since, you know, we don't have the same kind of investment on this side that we do on others?
A meeting node.
Yeah.
We talked about the nodes yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
Let's just call it like we
So,
did last night.
so I mean, that's what I'm thinking about here. You know, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. This can be multiple things. It doesn't have to just be the arboretum. And so I would, you know, like to explore that as an option, and of course, ask the people right there, right in the neighborhood, what they think about that.
And I think if the people in the neighborhood want it to be all an arboretum, I'm happy to bless it. It's just, I want to make sure that they've had input.
And I'm happy to bless it if we talk about the whole city and citywide, because this is city dollars. This is a city park. This is a city arboretum. You know, we're focusing so much on the folks right around there, and they are greatly impacted. But this really is a city park to be enjoyed by everybody in the city. So I want to make sure we're not discounting the city, the whole city. And how much discussion did y'all have with like the school board using the parking lot, you know, and stuff like that, especially if like during bus hours, you know, and drop off and pick up times, and the use, you know, actual use of the parking lot?
Yeah, that conversation, I believe, happened kind of before we were brought in. That was something that was presented to us as an option on day one, you know, that this was a potential. So I presume those conversations happened. Meg, I'm not sure if you could speak to that, but just before, that was something that was presented kind of on day one. That was.
It's a great idea though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would certainly work with the school system and, you know, on issues like that. Right now, I think you need to understand that we're bringing this to you on an informational basis. We just had a full report last week. We're still looking through the document. We're bringing it to you to get your feedback on the report. So we appreciate the comments that you're making, and we will make those outreach efforts. And, you know, we are also concerned about the water quality on the property. The Outdoor Stewardship Grant, the state of Georgia, when we make that application, will also be very concerned. We will be doing phase 1 environmentals even initially when we submit the grant application to the state of Georgia. There'll be a lot more required of us if we are successful in receiving the grant dollars. So right now we're at what I would consider a conceptual level of a document that I would submit to the state to say, this is what we would like to build on the site, this is how much it costs, these are the maintenance requirements of it. The city would actually have to sign off that you would agree to maintain the property. We have a lot of partners at the table with us to help facilitate development of the park. So, you know, we're here to try to get your feedback. And like Ms. Jenkins said, you know, if you think we need to that in and look at that and see how that, can feed into the equation. We're very early level, we're not down here drawing actual plans, and construction plans and designs at this point. This is a conceptual drawing, we're trying to figure this out.
I'd love to see you continue working on it. I think it's going to be a great amenity. It's preservation of just woods, and it allows people access to land and nature that don't have access to it. So thank you for your work. I love the visuals that I'm seeing. Of course, we need to vet it all out like it's been discussed, but I'm excited about this. It's a great resource for Newnan one day.
And I did want to mention that the majority of the ongoing costs are in staffing. So that's looking at having, an actual, for it to be an accredited arboretum, it needs to have staffing. It needs to have someone managing and curating the collections, and also working with partners, working with educational partners. So that's, a good part of that cost is in the actual, true rehabilitation of that site over time. And this graphic is intended to show, what that may look like. It would probably look a little bit more curated than this image is showing, but it takes time to grow a forest, right? And what you're getting for in that ongoing cost is staff to actually ensure that the site doesn't become full of kudzu and poison ivy and everything we don't want to be in. So this takes a lot more hands-on time than your mow and go normal park. It's going to take a lot of investment, and that's the commitment you're making to have something, this great gem in the middle of the city, is to have that level of staffing and care. And to do it right, that's, we are proposing that level of staffing to really do it right. Of course, you can do it at a lot lower staffing rate, but would it have as good of a result? I'm coming from experience of having done invasive species removal. It takes a lot of labor, and you have a lot of invasive species on the site right now. So that's one factor. And then as that invasive species and restoration labor cost starts to taper off, the educational value of the site starts to rise. So that's looking at your staffing sort of going more towards the educational programming and towards the later end. So ideally, this would sort of level out from a maintenance standpoint and expand on the educational front. So that's where those numbers are coming from.
So could I ask a question then? So it's $250,000 a year. That's a sizable amount of money to keep ongoing. And I guess that also would include, in order to, you talked about potentially having a full-time interpretive park ranger. Is that what would be included in this?
I actually have a couple other, so.
We'll have our own park rangers.
A little diagram here of so in your pre-development phase, you'd be hiring on like an executive director who would be sort of stewarding the project, and that would be somebody with more of a scientific background who can really guide this project, from an educated perspective. And then, so as you're going through, and the phases are talking about sort of phases of the forest development here, not phases of project development. That's all happening, in the construction, and then phase 1, 2, and 3 are the first 5 years, 10 to 15 years, and 30 years on. So this is longer timeline type of project to really be fully realized and go on in perpetuity. So that education restoration is phases into more of an education and outreach sort of role, and then that ecological field crew is sort of, as I was saying, that's your hands-on folks who are out there pulling weeds. That need tapers over time. And then of course there'll be sort of the folks that need to make sure the restrooms are clean, that kind of stuff. That's that maintenance support function.
Okay.
I'm not really sure that, initially we would hire an executive director. We probably have the staff, but we can help foster, and we can have support organizations help train our staff on exactly what to do. So I think, and I didn't want to, change their numbers. We pay them as consultants. We want to get their opinions. But I'm not sure that we would walk down that path. We may have staff that can, help oversee this development. So I think that number is probably on the high end. That's just my opinion. But I would hate to I hate to tell you something costs $10,000
$10,000, and I report back in a year, this is like $60,000. So I'd rather you hear their opinions, we'll figure that out. But I did ask them to prepare their opinions on what our maintenance might look like.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Another question I had about taking this creek and kind of making it a wetland. That creates some problems with the federal government, right, under the WATUS and the waters of the state laws. And once it's potentially a water feature, it never goes back, and it's kind of stuck.
It already is. So,
But is it kind of more of a creek right now with just kind of a floodplain area? And
it's a former farm pond, so it's already been impounded, and it's already that wetland. It's functioning as a wetland currently because the pond water levels are so low. So I'm not sure how the hydrology has changed in the decades since. It's probably been a farm pond since maybe like the 1930s or so. And you can see where the lake water level, the water level used to be much higher, 3 to 5 feet higher, and now it's sort of low, and it does appear to retain water throughout the year. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of that condition regardless. So when I talked to stream restoration experts, they said a lot of the cost that goes into this stream restoration is actually removing all that sediment out, and by retaining that kind of wetland condition at the center, it would reduce the amount of sediment you'd have to remove, and it also kind of creates a lot of wildlife habitat. So.
yeah, I'm just looking at like long-term liabilities and problems, having to deal with the WATUS laws, the waters laws.
I have a question that you just sparked. Is it just been low for years and years and years, or is this a result of the drought?
Or is it just so much sediment?
Getting lower for at least since we can call historic aerials, and there's a lot of gaps in those. So it was a lot larger in the 80s, and then it's
Just been going down. Okay.
It's been sort of slowly depleting, and you can tell because the tree canopy cover is getting more and more dense. So
Gotcha.
less and less of water.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then I'm just big concerned about the whole Waters Acts, because that can be a major issue for municipalities. Anybody, honestly, anybody that has a water feature on their property. And then the other thing is, that we have the link trail going through that, and of course all those other paths. And this is just something, again, just things as we're thinking about. Allowing, Ms. Jenkins had mentioned yesterday about maybe allowing golf carts on these things, and bikes and bikers, biking on these paths. So again, just more maintenance potentially, depending on how much use these actually get, besides just walking, because walking still creates wear and tear, especially if anybody goes off path, which people are going to meander off and go enjoy nature. That's what it's for.
Yeah, that was
So.
one of the other recommended things. I'm a mountain biker myself, so no shade to mountain bikers, but they do cause a heavier wear and tear on your soft trail surfaces. So we had sort of had that discussion in one of our stakeholder group meetings that maybe of course bikes going through on the link, perfectly acceptable, but perhaps mountain bikers, off-road bikers, perhaps not appropriate for this site and this use.
Yeah. Anyway,
Those can be revisited, but we put those out there as sort of things to be considered and conversations to have early and upfront, because they do affect your programming, right? So if you have incompatible uses with your programming, that's not going to work well. You're going to have, so it's all dependent on how you want to program the sites, your community.
Yeah, it's kind of like our dirt little path that we have, mile path off the link already. It's kind of not necessarily, it's a lot to maintain, and right now it's kind of, it's hard to keep up with that much. We expand out so big, it's going to be very hard to maintain everything. But I appreciate it. This is some good work.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to thank WA's time in this project, start to finish. They were very professional and well thought out. I know we had hoped that Ms. Strozier would be our conduit to that community. That's why she was on the steering committee. But I know when the Willie Pritchett Day kind of fell through, and she didn't really provide any other alternatives to connect. So I'm not saying that we're done and we shouldn't. I fully support and connecting. I just wanted to just push back a little bit on the narrative that we hoped that we had a conduit to that community, and unfortunately, Ms. Strozier just didn't really show up to the task and help us connect with them. So I think we do need to find another, conduit and person that can help us connect better with the community. And your ideas certainly should be taken into consideration, but,
Well, I'm not gonna let you do that to Miss Strozier either, because she did make a effort to get to the biggest event that they have. My point is that there are others that don't involve Miss Strozier that could be reached out to. So let's not take one person and then decide that they are the end all be all.
I didn't say they
connected
were.
to the community.
I just you just spoke to them as if you said, well, she didn't mention this to you and she has a newsletter. I'm just saying she never brought those up to the process. I'm just saying that she never brought that to the process, and that we just need to find more people to help connect to
And
that
that
side
is
of the
the point.
community. That's all I
More
was saying,
people.
is we just need to find other people to help us connect more positively to them.
And these projects never have a problem connecting with people downtown. That's my point, is that if we are going to do something like this in their backyard, we have to make a concentrated effort that goes beyond one event to reach out to the community there and get their input on what they need rather than what we are imposing on them.
All right, so are we done with this?
Maybe we could have a work session about it.
Y'all would vote it down. Any further discussion? Seeing none, thank you so much. With that, we move into visitors, petitions, communications, and complaints. Item Q, request to reschedule Porch Fest to August 22nd, 2026. Thank you for your patience.
Yes.
I'm the primary organizer of New Porch Fest. We postponed our event on May 30th due to severe weather and public safety concerns. And after much consideration and some market research, we feel that August 22nd is the best date to reschedule.
Will this be, are all the plans the same for that date?
Pretty much. We've been communicating with musicians. We're going to have some that aren't the same. We may have some homeowners that aren't available as well. Some people are checking their schedules. We're going to do our best to also find a presenting sponsor in postponement. We lost some of our down payment money on some things that we were renting. So other than that, though, it should transfer the same.
Okay, and in terms of public safety and everything like that,
Yes,
it's the same?
Yes,
Great.
yes, all that's the same.
Chief, do you have any concerns about that, considering it's the one-to-one change?
Yeah, the chief and I spoke ahead of time, of course, the chief will also that I do, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'd like to make sure that we had other individuals and groups petition the council to participate in this event. So if we decide to move it, this allows for the First Baptist Church to have their family-friendly zone. This allows the downtown businesses that came and got permission. So if we do this, can we?
Yeah, we're authorizing everything that we authorized for the previous date for this one. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
We were prepared on the previous date prior to the weather issue that came up, so we're prepared to move forward with the same plan.
Right.
Public safety.
Perfect, thank you so much. Any discussion? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Request from Joe Wright with Throttle Junkies for street closures on April 3rd, 2027, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. for Throttle Junkies Spring Rally. And before we get into it, I will note that Mr. Wright has already approached, or has already discussed moving that date to April 10th, so as not to interfere with Market Day. But the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I presented a plan, and what we'd like to do is shut down Madison Street, North Court Square, South Court Square, and the inside lanes of Jackson and Jefferson, not the outside lanes. I understand that shutting down the entire street is not really doable. So what we'd like to do is shut down that North Court Square as well. That way it gives, everybody's safe walking all the way from Madison Street from RPM to the South Court Square. We're anticipating anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000 people to show up to this event. So the event we had back in March, we thought it was going to be around 500. We had well over 1,000.
How many are you going to have this time if it goes over?
Well, that's why I said 3,500 to 4,000.
All right.
And I'm shooting big this time.
All right.
To make sure that I'm on the right path. But I can say this, we were able to raise $20,000 that day. We've given back to date from January to now exactly $20,000, $8,000 in the last month. service dogs for veterans. So what we're doing really is changing lives, for our veterans, and we're helping people out. I know, the businesses downtown have flourished during some of our events that we've done. I wanna make sure by shutting this down that we have enough room this time, because we didn't last time. And I won't do it on a Sunday again, make that promise. Didn't quite realize the impact that we were gonna have. Like I said, I knew it was gonna get big, but I didn't think it was gonna get that big. So I'm trying to make sure we have enough room. And in all actuality, we may end up, as time goes on, I may come back and ask for maybe a little bit more road closure, just depending on if this even passes at this point.
And I spoke with the chief earlier, and Chief, if you want to speak to this, you can. I think that there were some concerns with coordinating with public safety. So what we might ask you to do is we might ask to table this so that you can have a meeting with public safety and work out some details that they're not quite sure about. So as we've got a full picture to vote on the actual proposal, if you would be amenable to that. And Chief, if there's anything to add to that, I think.
I'll speak quickly. So Mr. Wright and I, we had spoken on the phone after the most recent event that took place. We actually had a meeting scheduled, but that meeting didn't come forward. He was unable to attend the meeting. I would like the opportunity to sit down with him and discuss his plan a little bit further. I do have some concerns with the traffic on the lane closures. I do think he's got a great organization. They do a lot for charity. We're a big supporter of that. And if we could sit down and have a discussion and probably figure a way to work this out and make it safe. I just have some safety concerns, and when this came onto the agenda, this is the first time I've seen this map. So I think it would be best if we could sit down and have some discussions.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously I'm open to discussion, but I just wanted to flag that it might behoove us to just table this and get them to come back with a plan that's been fully vetted by public safety. Any discussion?
Are y'all good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I did miss the meeting. I had to miss it for a work event.
Sure.
That came up. And I also asked at that time when I was on the phone with the chief that I would like to sit down and speak with you about the event. And in that process, we haven't been able to have a meeting since then. So I put this together. I've also sent it to you as the mayor. I sent it to the city manager, Cletus, and I didn't hear anything back. So I just decided, hey, let's go to the city council meeting, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I did my due diligence, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we just had some miscommunications there in terms of getting this set up with public safety.
These are insurmountable. I think I'm not going to speak for the chief, but in our conversations, there's north and southbound routes, there's some tapering that needs to be done. You can't just have a hard stop. You need to work some cones. There needs to be a little bit more conversation. I think there's a path forward. I think what I hear the chief and what he's communicated to me is he'd like to have an opportunity to sit down and talk to that so that 4,000 or 5,000 people in town are safe when they're here.
And that's why I'm mentioning tabling it, is just so that kind of we can get it fully and then we can approve with the chief's blessing.
My thing is I need to get a date and see if this is actually going to be able to do. If we're not going to be able to do it in the city of Newnan, then I've got to be able to make sure in my planning phase that I'm going to be able to move somewhere else and take this. Because I've got a lot of people asking me, a lot of big vendors, about coming in and doing this. I just need to know if the date's good.
Yeah, I don't think the date is a problem. I think it's just more of getting the sign off from public safety that it's feasible at scale. At least that's my view. If anybody disagrees, please let me know. Any further discussion on this?
I mean, so my question is, because police chief has said he wants to talk about this, and our assistant city manager said he wants to talk about this. So if we table this, is our next meeting feasible for y'all to have had that conversation?
I believe so. July 21st is our next meeting.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that too late for you?
July 21st. I mean, it's not. Like I said, I feel like I did my due diligence in asking for meetings and sending out emails and asking to sit down. I did miss the meeting because of a work event. I couldn't help that. But I did also at the time on the phone conversation ask if I could have another meeting, and I haven't heard anything back. So I feel like I did my part.
Well, I think we're giving you an answer right now that you can meet with him between now and our next meeting, and then we'll make a decision then.
With him right now.
Okay, okay. But we'll, I mean,
So
I'm
do-
sorry, that's just, I'm looking at
why
this
not?
wrong.
I'm missing half of that conversation, so what's going on now?
So I think the question is whether we,
His outing is not until April the 10th of 2027,
Right.
correct?
yeah.
Right.
So do we have a motion to table this to the next meeting so that we can get the sign off of public safety? Do
I make that motion.
we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, carries unanimously.
So July 21st?
Yes, and we'll coordinate with you on that. Thank you, appreciate it. We move to item S, the request from Jimmy Duffy to close Perry Street between East Broad Street and Spring Street on July 4th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for craft vendors. Yes. Okay.
It's not in my packet.
There's nothing here.
Okay.
And they've expressed they'd like to have more space, so.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I want to bring a couple things to the council's attention here. July 4th, we have July 4th parade. We have our market day. We have the second market day on Madison Street, which they've already been granted permission. We have the 4th of July fireworks at Newnan High School. And so in my conversations with the chief, and what I've asked Ms. Shea and what she's shown here is all the road closures currently approved to date. In my conversations with the chief, every sworn officer in traffic and patrol, she or he will likely be working or touching one of those events during the day. If this body wants to go forward and add another multiple hour closure on Perry Street, that's your choice. I just want you to be aware of what you've already approved heretofore.
Okay.
So everything you just described is basically is a stress and an overload at this particular point.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's only so far that our resources can go.
Right.
Is there an option to move this into that parking lot? I know this has been a conversation going on, to move that into the parking lot at Perry and East Broad that would take it off the
Maybe.
public street, put it in a confined, safe spot. I'm just asking if that's an amenable option.
The lot next to the county administration building behind the Boyd Gallery.
Yeah.
Is that where? Yeah.
Yep.
That has been discussed. That is a lot less of a challenge. We're not closing roadways. We don't have barricades. We don't have officers out there during the time of those closures. That potential solution. I can't speak for Miss Jimmy if she would be amenable to that. That's her choice. I can't. But
Would that option create any, was that any burden on the officer? As you said, it's already a,
we would likely have to, make sure that no one's in it overnight. So we'd have to close it the night before, barricade it at the entries. I'd hope that Miss Duffy could bring somebody there to let vendors in and out so that our staff, our law enforcement officials who are elsewhere throughout the community that day, if they could do that and they would agree to that, we could probably support that without a huge effort.
And how much of the parking lot are we talking about?
I don't know.
Because I'm just
This
thinking
just
with
came
all
to
the
us.
stuff we got going on, people park everywhere.
Yes, ma'am. They'll be there for the 4th of July parade. They'll be there for Market Day. They'll be there for the second Market Day. There's a lot going on that day. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we've already approved 4 major community events on this day during this time.
Further thoughts, further discussion?
Well, I guess I have a question is 8 to 4 seem, what would your actual activity hours be like?
10 to 2, the same as the market day.
10 to 2, so 2 hours prior and 2 hours after.
Most of my vendors show up at like 8 a.m. Well, I say they do. With them being inside, a lot of them set up on Friday and they just show up at 10 o'clock. But the ones outside would have to show up that day. So at least I say an hour before so they can set up.
so help me, because there's nothing in the agenda. So I didn't have anything to read to know whether or not, this has been done before, or, I mean, I'm just trying to get some context here.
Has the event taken place before?
On the 4th of July, has this been something you've done, or is this all of a sudden, hey, I think this is an opportunity?
Well, I'm on 15 East Cross Street,
Mm-hmm.
and my insurance doesn't like my building sitting empty, but they like it if I open up for vendors every month, just so there's activity inside of it. And I just had a lot of people responding to setting up inside to where I could move it outside. Like I would have enough people to set up more outside. It's just something I'm doing to keep my insurance happy.
Okay. So,
And to give the tractors that can't get in at the market day, just an opportunity to set up.
I don't want to start something we can't finish, or that we can't keep up, honestly, because we have so many things going on that day. Our staff without asking overtly or saying, please don't stress us out more than we already are. And I don't want to ignore that. So for me, I think that there may be some other days that you can operate without it being a burden to our staff. Yeah.
My other vendors chose this day. They're like, next market day, can you after this?
Yeah, I get it. Closed mouths don't get fed, do they? So I get it. But I think in this situation, this is probably not the best decision for us. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. July 4th is one of the most crowded days in downtown Newnan. It's one of my favorite days in downtown Newnan.
Besides maybe Christmas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe July 4th is not the best opportunity.
Do you have another day you would be willing to consider?
Well, all of the vendors that I've had so far are actually signing up for every month that market day is here.
Mm.
So they're willing for the month. I committed to, or I told them I'd come to this one because my building is up for sale. So I can't tell them 6 months from now we can still do it, or 3 months from now we can still do it. Hopefully my building can sell.
Would you be willing to move it a week back, though, that's not on market day? / July 4th?
Yeah, I mean, I can do it. They were just, because they are applicants of market day, they were just kind of banking on it being the same schedule. But I'm not opposed to it being.
I think that would help. We talked about this before. DDA is working right now on some guidelines to really help us out, so we don't have these last-minute add-ons. We've already committed police, and I hate to say no, because we love having events downtown Newnan, but we just need to plan them better. Plan the scheduling of them better. Not plan your event, but just the scheduling for our resources. And I appreciate you being willing to move it off to another week. Just come back to us with another.
Is there any support to do this without closing one of the streets? Like, again, move it to a parking lot or something that takes away the need to have, our officers, again, working yet another weekend, extra hours. I'm just
I
asking
got a
if there is
clarifying
support for
question,
that.
though. If she holds it on a parking lot, do we actually have to approve it at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So provided they do all the moving, letting people in and out, doing whatever, like I think Chief had mentioned or Haskell had mentioned.
It could be another parking lot. I'm just wondering if there's any support just to move it out of the public street. For me, that's the bigger issue, is just taking, again, using officers to need to do that.
Could I ask, Chief, does that put if they do move it to a parking lot, what kind of constraints are you looking at now? Again, with that in mind, for op.
They're on private property.
He wasn't in the room. Let me, if I can. Yeah, he was out having his meeting. I believe that's what you were doing. Yep. And so to catch you up, Councilman Byrd had suggested, if we don't close Perry, to allow Jimmy and her team to go to the lot next to Boyd Gallery in the county admin building. My response was, one, there's other events in town. People typically use that lot during that day. However, we'd have to clear it the day before or the night before, put barricades up, and then she would have to agree to let people in and out. So that's the catch up.
That's what I was asking. If it's a city parking lot, but if she goes to a private parking lot, like her own, we ain't got nothing to do with it, right?
This is a public lot.
Yeah, but
Yes,
I'm saying if she decides to move to a private lot
Yeah,
that's
go
not
for it,
our
then.
lot,
Yes, ma'am.
which one?
Between her and the private lot owner.
That's right.
I like the office building.
It is or isn't a private lot?
The one she proposed was public.
Yes, that was the
Sit-
issue.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I
that's
don't
the
think
issue.
there's any way we can have an event on that day that doesn't add to, or if it's anywhere downtown, that wouldn't add to the strain on our police above what we should have.
But if you got a friend with a lot, all you.
A lot with a view.
All
All
right.
right. No further discussion? Well, I'm going to make the motion that we deny the request. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of denying the request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carries unanimously. Sorry about that, but we hope you do it some other time.
Mr. Mayor, before we
Yes.
conclude, if we could.
Well, we've got a motion, we have an executive session item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just while the police and everybody here, I just want to tell them, thank you for what you do, all our public safety, police and fire. I know this weekend, the Independence Weekend's coming up. Y'all are going to be totally, strained. And so we appreciate it. I know we've kind of put you in a spot with having 4 events, everybody touching a cone at some point in their day. But thank you for all that y'all do.
Yep, always. All right, with that, we have the motion to enter into executive session.
What's our reason for that?
Legal.
Legal, okay. I move that we now enter a closed session as allowed by OCGA 50-14-4 and pursuant to the advice by the city attorney for the purpose of discussing legal, and that we in open session adopt a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor or presiding officer to execute an affidavit in compliance with OCGA 50-14-4, and that the body ratify the actions of the council taken in closed session and confirm that the subject matters of the closed session were within exceptions permitted by the open meetings law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we move into executive session.